After resting for the night, we set out at dawn but split into two groups. I sent Clay back to Grey Fortress with his 2nd Infantry Squad to turn in the pighead kills and prisoners for war merits. 206 killed and 71 captured. That earned us a nice haul of merit points across several ranks. I told Clay to keep 3 9th rank merits for his Knight Squad as I promised, and use the rest to exchange for 12 Phaeton potions and 11 life source elixirs. The prisoners should fetch a couple hundred gold coins, which I told him to spend entirely on ordinary contract scrolls. Once Clay's group left, I led everyone else back to Storm City with our captured supplies and the craftsman slaves Clay had bought. Luckily, none of them died along the way. That evening, I signed 10-year loyalty contracts with Gaddy, George, and their 8 elite soldiers. The contracts only ensure loyalty. All their benefits stay the same. I appointed Gaddy as my personal guard captain and George as his deputy. I'd already planned this after confirming they had clean backgrounds. Then I had them pick 42 of the best farmhands from Storm City serfs and used up my remaining contract scrolls on them. Together with the 2 junior warriors and 8 elites, that gave me a 52-man personal guard unit. They'll all live in the Baron's residence and stay by my side from now on. My first order to Gaddy and George: get this squad battle ready within 2 months. I'll inspect them personally. Next, I handed John the 100 sets of auxiliary materials for wolf fire potions and water fairy potions that Clay had purchased and told him to start brewing immediately. Then I spent 3 days inspecting the territory. Old Charlie reported that beyond the existing 1,000 acres of paddies and 1,000 acres of dry fields, they'd cleared another 1,500 acres of paddies, with plans to clear 1,500 more this year. Progress was slow because workers were spread thin across the cement plant, brick kiln, city renovations, the mining island, and bay fishing. Once the mine runs properly, the smithy will need hands too. I'm planning to boost population again after the fishing operation proves itself. I checked every project: the arrow tree grove, cement plant, brick kiln, outer city construction, bay fishing. Fixed what needed fixing and gave the workers some encouragement. While at the bay, I visited little Cohen, my baby narwhal. I can't just ignore it because I bound it with a spirit contract. It's still a newborn that needs company. Its wounds have nearly healed. Magic beast pups really are tough. I played with it for half a day. After that, I went to the mining island with Russell. The miners and guards are living in basic wooden shacks, which is why I set up a rotation system. Nobody could stand being stuck on that little island forever. They've started early-stage work, clearing the surface above the iron ore and building a road from the mine to the dock. Watching everyone haul things on their backs, I immediately thought of the wheelbarrow: simple to build, easy to use. I sketched a rough design for 2 carpenters, explained how it works, and they got it right away. The hardest part is the wheel, and they said they could just copy the design from cartwheels. By the time I finished inspecting everything, Clay's group was already back with the 12 Phaeton potions and 11 life source elixirs. Going forward, Clay and Roger will take turns. One patrols the northwestern wilderness mountains, the other trains the 2nd Night Squad. With the potions in hand, I called in Parker, Jenkins, Will, and Lori. All 4 had peaked as elite soldiers and each had earned a 9th rank merit, so they qualified to exchange for Phaeton potions. I told them they could save their merits if they wanted, but I recommended exchanging. Earning merits is much easier once you become a professional. They were thrilled and chose immediately. Becoming professionals raises their status and guarantees their children will have a path to becoming professionals too. They took their potions and went off to break through. Then I called in Eric and Thomas. Both had peaked as apprentice knights but didn't have enough merits for life source elixirs yet. So I offered them the same deal I gave Roger. I'd lend them the elixirs now, and they can pay the merits back later. After handing out 4 Phaeton potions and 2 life source elixirs, I hoped everyone would break through on their first try. These potions don't guarantee success. Sometimes things go wrong during the breakthrough, or your foundation isn't solid enough, or you're just unlucky. But each person gets 3 attempts, and failing all 3 is very rare. So even if someone fails now, they can earn more merits and try again. With everything handled, I went back to my own training routine, popping wolf fire potions and running the flame-breathing technique. 3 days in, I got word that 5 out of 6 succeeded. Only Lori missed, but she wasn't discouraged. She felt confident she'd make it on the next attempt. and as deputy captain of the archer squad with solid skills. Earning another 9th rank merit in the next battle wouldn't be a problem. The other 5 all became first-tier junior warriors and knights, bringing my territory's total professional count to 12. When I first arrived in this world, I only had clay. After 10 straight days of training, my nerves were at their limit. So I took a rest day at Storm Bay to hang out with little Cohen, my baby narwhal. The fishing operation was already running. 10 small boats dragging big homemade nets across the bay. Luckily, the bay is huge, and John had checked it out personally. Because Naga once lived here and reshaped the environment, there's plenty of coral and seaweed, which means the fish population is decent. As long as I manage the catch properly, the ecosystem should hold up fine. After resting, I went back to grinding. About a month of on and off training later, I felt the flame breathing technique had hit its first tier limit. I checked my panel. Name, Levi Lewis. Flame breathing. First tier junior knight, 1000 out of 1000. Flame triple slash. First tier, 11 out of 20. Attribute points, 99. Finally maxed out. The last potion didn't even give me 31 experience points, which confirmed that potions alone can't push you past a tier boundary. In total, I burned through 32 wolf fire potions, 9 before and 23 this round. John brewed 28 in the first batch and 33 in the second, plus 13 water fairy potions. The water fairy main ingredient is still limited since we only have 13 water fairy plants producing enough for 30 doses. Out of those 30 attempts, 13 succeeded, a better rate than wolf fire. Besides the breathing technique, I also trained flame triple slash during this period. Night training requires intense physical work anyway, so I figured I'd combine the two. I also squeezed in some lava meditation practice to relax my body, which bumped that up a bit too. Windchaser archery got completely neglected though. My arms were too wrecked to even lift a bow. With the breathing technique maxed, I didn't break through right away. I was completely exhausted from the last potion session, so I decided to sleep first. I ended up sleeping for an entire day and night. Old Charlie nearly called John over, but Mia stopped him. With his 4th tier great warrior senses, Mia could tell I was just extremely tired, and my professional level body would adjust on its own. Sure enough, I woke up the next evening, shocked at how long I'd been out. But surprise quickly gave way to hunger. My stomach was screaming. After eating my fill, I calmed my mind and put 1 attribute point into flame breathing. The battle aura surged out of my body on its own, and my life seed heart began transforming. Though the change was smaller than when I first broke into the first tier, I opened my panel again. Flame breathing, 2nd tier intermediate knight, 0 out of 10,000. Basic archery, 2nd tier, eligible to fuse. Windchaser archery, 1st tier, 0 out of 20, eligible to fuse. Attribute points, 98. My talents had upgraded too. Super Foresight now gives me 2 passive danger warnings per day within a 2-kilometer range, 3-day advance notice, plus the ability to sense nearby hostility. Ultimate speed now triples my attack speed, movement speed, reaction time, and agility. And my energy spirit reached 256, with an option to awaken it. The panel itself leveled up. I now earn 10 attribute points daily, and same type skills can be fused. After breaking through to 2nd tier intermediate knight, I stared at my panel in disbelief. The panel itself can level up, and skills can be fused now? Plus my daily attribute points jumped to 10. I couldn't help complaining. If I'd known earlier, I wouldn't have been so stingy with spending them. I immediately fused basic archery with Windchaser archery. Knowledge flooded into my mind as the two merged. When I checked the panel, basic archery had been absorbed into Windchaser archery, and the experience went up too. Windchaser now showed 15 out of 20 at 1st tier. There was also a new indicator, 4th tier 1/10. My Windchaser is supposed to be a 3rd tier skill, so maybe fusion can raise a skills level cap? The 1 out of 10 probably means I need to fuse 10 different 2nd tier archery skills to unlock the next upgrade. Something to test later. With 10 daily attribute points, training low tier skills only takes a few days. After that, I headed to my training courtyard and called out Mia for a sparring match. She was surprised, but I told her to start at half strength and raise it when I say. I wanted to see where I stood as a 2nd tier knight with triple speed. By standard numbers, my speed should already surpass a 4th tier great knight, though experienced fighters at that level usually exceed the baseline. At half strength, Mia couldn't keep up with me, and I actually had her on the defensive. But her swordsmanship and combat experience were way above mine, so no matter how fast I moved, I couldn't break through her defense. As she gradually raised her power to about 3/4, I was clearly outmatched. I could only dodge and run until she flicked my sword out of my hands. Mia gave me her honest assessment. My speed is excellent, but my footwork is a mess. I'm not using the speed advantage properly. And my sword technique is only at first-tier level, completely useless against third- or fourth-tier fighters. I'd get one surprise attack at best, and if that fails, there wouldn't be a second chance. She was right. I picked up my sword and dumped 10 attribute points into Flame Triple Slash, pushing it to second tier. Then I checked. Reaching third tier only cost 51 more points. So I kept going, spending 51 points to max it out at third tier. That left me with 88 attribute points, but I needed real combat ability, not savings. I told Mia to fight me again at the same level she'd just beaten me with, then charged in. I activated my battle aura, gripped the sword with both hands, and thrust forward before slashing diagonally upward. Mia flinched and stepped back, but I didn't stop. I spun and swung horizontally. She couldn't dodge this time and had to block. The impact knocked us both backward. Then I pushed off the ground with battle aura, launched myself into the air, and brought the sword down with everything I had. That final strike sent Mia flying into the wall. I heard coughing and rushed over to help her up. After upgrading to third tier, I'd realized the technique needs all 3 slashes in sequence to reach full power. Each hit builds on the last, and the third blow carries the force of all 3 combined. I just hadn't expected it to be this strong. Mia said she was fine, then told me what she thought. Even though the technique is only third tier, the 3-hit combo hits nearly as hard as a 4th-tier skill, and I'm only a 2nd-tier knight. Combined with my speed, most 3rd-tier knights probably couldn't beat me in a straight fight, and 3rd-tier warriors definitely couldn't. Good to know where I stand. But my goal is to handle 4th-tier opponents, so next I'm going to awaken a new innate talent and see if I can push my strength even further. After confirming my close combat strength was nearly 4th-tier level, I spent 6 attribute points to raise Windchaser Archery to 2nd tier. Then I used 10 energy spirit points to awaken a new innate talent. What I got was absolute defense. At initial level it doubles my physical defense, battle aura defense, and magic spirit defense all at once. I figured it probably works like ultimate speed, so I spent 101 more energy spirit points to push it to intermediate level. Sure enough, intermediate gives a triple boost across all 3 types of defense. Looking at my 3 talents now, foresight for the mind, speed and defense for the body, I noticed I hadn't awakened any elemental attack talents like most knights do. At this rate, my next awakening will probably be something like raw strength. I had Mia help me test the defense. With just my bare body, I can now take a hit from an elite soldier's blade and reduce damage from regular arrows. Stack that with battle aura, my 3rd-tier enchanted inner armor, and an iron outer layer, and even a 4th-tier great warrior like Mia would have trouble breaking through in a short fight. Layered armor really is king. After reviewing my full panel, I realized almost everything I can currently improve is already maxed or close to it. Windchaser Archery just needed 20 more points, 2 days worth. After that, the only thing left to train short-term is my Magic Apprentice path. I need new skills to keep the panel useful, so I'm planning to learn Holy Light Cross Slash, another 3rd-tier sword technique that should be fusible with Flame Triple Slash. I also need 2nd-tier Knight and Magic Training Potion recipes, plus some 1st and 2nd-tier Earth and Fire spells. All of that means saving money and earning war merits. If I can't buy what I need from Klein, I'll have to exchange merits for it, though merit-exchanged items can only be used personally. I'd love to set up my own trade caravan to Frostmoon City or the inland cities, but I don't have the right people or strong enough escorts yet. I'd just be handing over money and lives. With my plan sorted out, I went to sleep. I knew it would be a long one, so I ate half a fire-tailed duck first. They haven't started proper breeding yet, so after this one I probably won't get another until year's end. I told Mia not to wake me unless something important happened. I slept a full day and 2 nights, waking naturally on the 3rd morning. First thing I did was dump all my saved attribute points into Windchaser Archery, pushing it to 3rd tier at its limit. Mia reported nothing had happened while I was out. I headed to the brick kiln. I'd heard 2 weeks ago during training that they'd successfully fired green bricks. Walking through the castle, I noticed all the buildings had been replaced with matching red brick houses, built for the serfs at no cost. These people never imagined they'd live in houses this nice, and since arriving at Storm City, they've never gone hungry. Every serf I passed bowed respectfully. That felt good. At the kiln, I picked up one of Toby's green bricks and tried to snap it. Solid work. I told him to switch production entirely to green bricks and pause red brick making. I promoted all the masons at the kiln to commoner status and gave Toby a gold coin as a reward. He stared at it like he'd never held one before, because he hadn't. The other masons were even more emotional about no longer being slaves and dropped to their knees to thank me. Just as I was inspecting the green brick production line, Eric came galloping in on horseback, shouting, "My lord, something happened at the Arrow Tree Grove." The Arrow Tree Grove? What now? Since Eric and Thomas became first-tier junior knights, their main jobs have been training the second knight squad and patrolling the northern part of the territory. The dense forests up north are full of low-tier magic beasts hiding because of the Gale Wolf packs, though they rarely come near Storm City since previous barons were all 4th or 5th-tier professionals. So when I heard something happened at the Arrow Tree Grove, my first guess was a magic beast causing trouble. Eric confirmed it. A 3rd-tier red flame porcupine had shown up and already killed 2 soldiers from the 2nd Spear Squad. Thomas had lured it away on his own. A 3rd-tier beast right off the bat. I was furious. I grabbed Mia and Gaddy and told Eric to lead the way. Before leaving, I ordered George to send Parker and Will with the 1st Infantry Squad and 2 archer teams to the Arrow Tree Grove as backup, and to bring a big flatbed cart. This thing killed my soldiers, so I wasn't letting it escape. After about half an hour of chasing, we found the porcupine northeast of the grove, 3 kilometers out. Thomas was in serious danger. The beast had used its earth element talent spell, Earth Spike, to cut off his escape route. I grabbed my enchanted bow and put an arrow right into its rear. Even with my 3rd-tier Windchaser archery and a 3rd-tier enchanted bow, I couldn't pierce through. The arrowhead just sank into its backside. Pig-type beasts have insane natural defense, and the earth element makes it even tougher than 3rd-tier enchanted armor. The porcupine abandoned Thomas and charged at me. I sent Eric and Gaddy to grab Thomas and circle north to cut off the beast's retreat. Then I fired another arrow, hitting its front neck. I'd aimed for the eye, but this thing was smart, keeping its head low and swaying side to side while running. It spat a fireball at me the size of a bowl. I was ready and jumped off my horse to dodge. My riding skills are still beginner level, so fighting mounted isn't really my thing yet. My next shot hit its left front leg perfectly, making it stumble and crash, rolling 5 or 6 meters across the ground. Mia had been waiting for exactly this. She rushed in and drove her 3rd-tier enchanted short sword straight through the porcupine's soft belly. It squealed in agony, then covered the wound area with earth magic to block further damage and shot a fireball at Mia. But Mia has spent years living in the wilderness mountains. She's killed 8 or 10 of these porcupines before. She barely shifted her body to one side, and the fireball sailed past. Then she yanked out her sword and slashed the beast's left eye clean out. The porcupine finally came to its senses, realized it was outmatched, and used Earth Spike to force Mia back before running north, straight toward me. I took that personally. This thing was looking down on me. I drew my sword and charged. Flame triple/ready. Right before contact, I burst into triple speed, reversed my grip, and drove the blade downward into its head, right through the ruined left eye socket. The sword punched clean through its skull and pinned it to the ground. It grunted a few times and died. A ball of energy floated out of its body and flowed into me. 100 energy spirit points, bringing me back to 245. I'd expected a long, drawn-out fight, but it ended surprisingly fast. Most of the credit goes to Mia, though. The way she handled that porcupine was incredible, cool and calm, dodging fireballs with just a slight lean like it was nothing. I couldn't help praising her when she walked over. Her response? "It's nothing, my lord. This is just experience from my pig slaughtering days back in the White Wolf tribe. So she's a butcher. Good to know." I shook my head hard, trying not to connect the image of a beautiful beast-eared girl with a pig butcher. Some things are better left alone. I waved Gaddy, Eric, and Thomas over to deal with the carcass. This red flame porcupine was the size of a water buffalo. No way I was handling that myself, and heavy lifting isn't exactly a baron's job. Mia volunteered, but I stopped her too. When Gaddy arrived, he wasn't surprised by what I'd done. He'd seen me spar with Mia and knew my strength. But Eric and Thomas had no idea I'd broken through to second-tier intermediate knight. Their faces were pure disbelief. I could practically hear them thinking, didn't he just reach first tier? How is he already at second? Even the geniuses in the Tulip Marquee territory don't advance this fast. Before they could spiral too deep into their thoughts, I snapped them back to work. I sent Eric to hurry up the flatbed cart and told Thomas to dig out the beast's crystal core. Thomas pulled my sword out of the porcupine skull first, wiped it clean, and handed it back with a note that it was warped. Probably got bent hitting bone when I pierced through. Looks like I need to sell some wolf fire potions and buy an enchanted weapon so I don't have to keep replacing them. The crystal core was red and yellow, matching the porcupine's dual earth-fire nature. We waited nearly an hour before the cart arrived. To my surprise, John the alchemist had tagged along. After several professionals worked together to heave the one-ton beast onto the cart, I asked John why he came. He tried to play it casual, just checking if you needed help, but I saw right through him. He wanted the crystal core. He lectured me that magic beast cores are far too valuable to sell, that mages use them for mana recovery and training, better than magic crystals even, and that I really needed to read my magic biology textbook. I promised I'd read it later and gave him the core, on the condition that he'd cover the compensation for the 2 soldiers who died. That distracted him from nagging me about studying. On the way back, about a kilometer northeast of the Arrow Tree Grove, I noticed a few soldiers pulling wild plants from the roadside, some eating them raw and others stuffing them inside their armor. I called Parker over, furious, and demanded to know if his squad wasn't getting enough food or if he was skimming their rations. Parker swore he wasn't. He explained these soldiers were former serfs who grew up starving, and old habits die hard. Whenever they spot something edible during training, they grab it. He'd punished them many times and thought they'd stopped. I calmed down a bit and questioned the soldiers directly. They dropped to their knees begging forgiveness, swearing the food at camp was plenty. I took the plants from their hands and asked what made them break the rule again. A soldier named Paul blurted out, "My lord, this plant is incredibly sweet." I couldn't resist. I popped a piece in my mouth. My eyes went wide. It really was sweet, sweeter than sugar cane or sugar beets. But before I could get excited about this discovery, I heard hoofbeats from the southwest. I turned, and my expression went serious immediately. It was Clay, who was supposed to be patrolling the northwestern wilderness mountains. That could only mean one thing. Enemies were coming. The northwestern patrols run non-stop, and since Roger was still in Storm City, Clay showing up could only mean one thing. Enemies from the mountains. Please don't be Gale Wolves, I thought. After the last pack got wiped out by the Naga and the black and white giant bear, a 4th-tier wolf came snooping around. I left it alone, and when it reached the bay, it caught some scent that scared it off for good. I told John to record the location of those sweet wild plants, ordered everyone into formation, and rode to meet Clay. A pighead army is heading straight for Storm City, he reported. About 600 pigheads? I hadn't expected that. According to previous Baron's records, only goblins and pygmies were nearby. Clay figured some pigheads must have escaped during our last fight in the forest and reported back. This was a revenge attack. 600 wasn't too bad, but I needed more details. Clay said the vanguard squad was led by a 4th-tier pighead. That meant the chief could be either 4th or 5th tier. Armies under 1,000 usually don't have 5th-tier leaders, but I couldn't be sure. So instead of fighting in the open, I decided to defend from the castle walls. If there was a 5th tier out there, an open battle could cost me too many soldiers. Clay estimated 4 hours before they arrived. They were chopping trees to build river rafts. That gave me enough time. On the way back, I sent word for all serfs working outside to return to Storm City and ordered every boat in the bay to the dock. An hour later, every squad-level officer and professional gathered in the Baron's Hall. Everyone except Diara, who was on mining island duty. I laid things out. 600 pigheads coming for revenge. We have to fight, and we need to crush them decisively. In 2 months, it's harvest season. If they come back then, we'd be in real trouble. The pigheads wouldn't destroy our crops since grain is exactly what they want to steal, but I didn't want them coming back at all. My officers were confident. Only 600? We have 500 soldiers now. That's more than enough. They figured the pigheads still thought we were some weak new territory. I appreciated the morale, but warned them not to get cocky. A 5th-tier chief would change everything. Then I gave orders. Clay and Roger would take both night squads out of the city to hide west of Storm Bay and wait for my signal. Parker and Jenkins would load their squads onto boats, hide behind the nearest small island west of the bay, land at night, link up with the knights, and move together. Everyone else stays in the castle. The room went quiet for a second, then they understood my plan and called it brilliant. I waved that off. We'd see if it was brilliant after the fight. The knights rode out first. The 1st Infantry and 1st Spear squad sailed off to the island. The remaining defenders started hauling rocks, logs, and other siege weapons up onto the walls. At 3 in the afternoon, I spotted the pighead army through my telescope. More importantly, my danger sense hadn't triggered. That meant no 5th tier among them. With my current strength, 4th tier pigheads were no threat to me anymore. Half an hour later, they stopped a kilometer outside the walls to eat and rest, then started building siege ladders from chopped trees. An hour after that, they attacked, 400 at once from the east and south sides simultaneously. No probing, no testing, just a full assault from the start. They clearly looked down on a lord who'd only been here 3 months. Since the pigheads attacked so carelessly, I wasn't going to disappoint them. I grabbed my enchanted bow and put an arrow straight through the eye of a 3rd-tier pighead charging at the front. Dead on the spot, 100 energy spirit points collected. Losing a 3rd-tier fighter right at the start enraged their chief, who personally joined the assault. But I wasn't scared. I fired another arrow and took down a 2nd-tier pighead. That spooked the rest of their professionals into hiding among the regular troops. With no good targets left, I switched to a normal bow and started picking off ordinary pigheads. Once they got within 50 meters, Laurie ordered his 2 archer teams on the south wall to fire. Volleys of arrows dropped 5 or 6 pigheads at a time. When they closed to 20 meters, Laurie pulled the archers back and Creel's 2nd Infantry squad raised shields while the pigheads launched rocks and grappling hooks to cover their ladder teams. After 2 months of training, my squad-level officers had reached decent commanding ability. I switched back to the enchanted bow and focused on suppressing their chief and professionals. Just me alone kept 7 or 8 of them pinned down. The east wall was harder. Mia, Will, Russell, and Gaddy held that side against the 4th-tier pighead vanguard captain. Without someone like me suppressing their professionals, several 2nd-tier pigheads actually made it onto the wall. Mia fought the 4th-tier captain to a standstill. Both were 4th-tier great warriors, so neither could gain an edge. I sent George over to reinforce them. Fighting lasted until dark before the pigheads pulled back and camped 2 kilometers east. They figured that with only 2.5 squads defending and just 1 4th-tier fighter plus a few 1st-tier professionals, they'd win tomorrow if they could take out the annoying archer, me. They had no idea they wouldn't survive the night. I counted casualties. The east wall lost 5 dead, 2 permanently injured, and 12 wounded. Too many pigheads got up there without a sharpshooter. The south wall where I fought lost only 1 dead and 6 wounded. I made a mental note. I need proper siege weapons. If this many pigheads can get over the wall, a real orc invasion would be devastating. After settling the troops, I put the night plan into action. At 1 in the morning, Mia slipped over the west wall to tell Clay's group to attack the pighead camp from the west and south at 3 a.m. At 2, I led the personal guard and 2nd Spear squad out quietly to position north of their camp. At 3 a.m. sharp, war cries exploded from the west as Clay, Roger, and their night squads charged in alongside Mia. The pighead camp erupted into chaos. Then Parker and Jenkins hit from the west and southwest. Total pandemonium. When the pigheads tried to flee north, I was waiting. Now they were surrounded on all sides. Mia caught the 4th-tier vanguard captain off guard, wounded him badly. Killing him was just a matter of time. I crept close to the chief's tent and found him rallying his personal guards to break out. At this range, with 3rd-tier Windchaser archery, the arrow was faster than a magic crossbow bolt. Just a faint whistle through the air, then it hit the 4th-tier chief square in the face. Even a 4th-tier warrior's danger instincts couldn't react in time. He fell backward with fury still on his face. A brilliant white light, purer than any before, flowed into me. I didn't have time to check if a 4th-tier kill was worth 1,000 energy spirit points, because his guards charged at me in a rage instead of running, including one third-tier pighead. Too close for the bow, so I drew my sword. At my current close combat level, this third-tier pighead was nothing. I used my speed advantage to tangle with him, then unleashed the flame triple/combo and finished him in one sequence. By the time I cleaned up the guards, fighting was winding down everywhere. Mia had killed the fourth-tier vanguard captain. I had Gaddy raise the pighead chief's body high and shout, "Surrender and live." Some pigheads who couldn't break through laid down their weapons. The night raid on the pighead camp lasted barely over an hour before they broke and scattered. After that came the chase. We hunted down fleeing pigheads in every direction until dawn, clearing out those who ran east, south, and north. The ones who fled west were still being pursued by Mia and Clay's night squad. I returned from the north with my personal guards and found Jenkins had already cleaned up the camp. Parker and Roger's groups trickled back soon after. I sent Roger straight back to patrol the northwestern mountains. That post can't go unguarded for even a moment. Then I checked my panel. Energy Spirit, 1,456. I'd killed 1 4th tier, 2 3rd tier, 1 2nd tier, and 1 1st tier, earning 1,211 points total. That confirmed the pattern. Each tier up multiplies the energy by 10. A 4th tier kill gives 1,000 points. I decided to upgrade Super Foresight since it's my best survival tool. I poured 1,001 points into it, pushing it from intermediate to advanced. Now I get 5 passive danger warnings per day, covering a 5-kilometer range with 5 days advance notice. Plus I can sense hostility within 1 kilometer. That covers all of Storm City. Unless some high-tier professional specifically comes to assassinate me, I'll know about any 5th or 6th tier threat in time to run. And if there are any spies or traitors hiding among my people, I'll feel their ill intent too. I sent George to retrieve the red flame porcupine carcass and headed back to the castle with the rest of my guards. The guard unit took some losses too, 2 dead, 1 crippled, and 8 wounded on the walls, plus 3 wounded during the night raid. 2 hours later, Mia and Clay still hadn't returned. I was starting to worry, but through the enslavement seal I could feel Mia was fine. Near noon, Parker and Jenkins came with the full battle report. Total losses across all units, 51 casualties, including 11 dead and 2 permanently disabled. A 10% casualty rate, acceptable, especially since the wounded can return to service. The kills were impressive, 19 pighead professionals total. I personally got 1 4th tier, 2 3rd tier, 1 2nd tier, and 1 1st tier. Mia killed 1 4th tier, 2 2nd tier, and 2 1st tier. The night squads, archer squad, my guards, and the infantry and spear squad split the rest. On top of that, 452 regular pigheads killed and 156 captured. Total war merits earned, 2 6th rank, 2 7th rank, for 8th rank, and 35.4 9th rank, minus the 1 8th rank and 5 9th rank I promised Clay's group. Jenkins' report was incredibly thorough. He'd laid out exactly what I needed to know. I told him this is the standard going forward and to finish tallying individual merits quickly. For collective merit rewards, I set it at 4 8th rank merits, about 2,000 gold coins. The territory doesn't have much money, so it's less than it could be, but I told them to split my and Mia's shares among everyone else. Parker and Jenkins were stunned. They said I was the most generous lord they'd ever seen, 10 times better than any other. I waved off the praise. I asked about Mia and Clay, but nobody had word. It wasn't until 4 days later that Eric rode back with a message. Clay and Mia had been tracking a 3rd-tier pighead to find the location of the pighead tribe's home base. So Clay had chased a 3rd-tier pighead and decided to track it all the way back to find the tribe's home base. After losing nearly a battalion's worth of fighters between our 2 battles, their settlement had to be running thin. I laughed when I heard. Clay must be crazy for war merits to chase them into the wilderness mountains. Eric gave me the details. The tribe was about 15 kilometers into the mountains from where we'd been ambushed before. Most of the route was wide and flat, good enough for horses and carts, probably a major orc invasion corridor. Only the last kilometer narrowed down, though still passable on horseback. Clay had scouted with a telescope. Only 200 to 300 fighting-age soldiers left, plus about 1,000 elderly, women, and children. To test their strength, they'd even driven a 3rd-tier magic beast, a green wind bull, into the tribe's gate. That revealed just one aging 4th tier, the 3rd tier that escaped us, and 7 or 8 lower-tier professionals. My mind immediately went to the 1,000-plus non-combatants. Female pigheads and young ones are actually more valuable than human male serf laborers. They're easy to tame, and while they eat a lot, their digestion handles anything. They can literally eat grass if they have to. They're tough and hard to kill even when worked hard. Excellent slaves. No way I was passing this up. I called my officers together and planned the expedition. Jenkins would stay behind guarding Storm City with a mixed squad from the 1st Infantry and 1st Spear units, plus 3 archer teams under Will and Lori. Russell would swap his battered half-squad to Mining Island duty, while Diarra brought his fresh half-squad to join us. I also brought John along. He knows a lot, and I didn't want to miss anything valuable. Of course, that just gave him more chances to nag me about reading my magic textbooks. The next morning I marched out with over 300 soldiers, 50 draft horses, 30 carts, and 100 wheelbarrows. We rested one night before entering the mountains and met up with Clay at the narrow path entrance around noon on the 3rd day. We hid the carts in the forest and followed the trail to the Pighead settlement. Clay reported the tribe sat in a valley with only one entrance on the west side. Since the 3rd-tier Pighead had made it back, they were on high alert, 200 soldiers, and that 3rd tier guarding the valley mouth. To minimize losses, we needed a surprise attack to take the entrance fast. I checked the terrain myself. The mouth could only fit one squad at a time. So I decided to lead all the professionals and about 70 elite soldiers in a surprise assault, with archers right behind us, and the rest pouring in once. We broke through the gate. I launched the attack at 5 in the afternoon, when the setting sun was right in the defenders' eyes as they looked west. Perfect for a sharpshooter like me. While Mia and Clay's group charged the gate, I picked off 3 pighead professionals with precision shots, 2 1st tier and the 3rd tier who'd escaped us before. Mia and Clay cut through the defenders like a blade, opening the way for our elite soldiers. We took the gate before the old 4th tier pighead could even arrive to help. After that, our full force poured in, and it turned into a one-sided slaughter. Anyone who refused to surrender was cut down. I personally killed the old 4th tier pighead and collected another 1,000 energy spirit points. After the battle, I had everyone clean up and prepare to spend the night in the Pighead settlement before heading back tomorrow. With 1,000 fresh points in hand, I upgraded ultimate speed to advanced level. It now quadruples my attack speed, movement speed, reaction time, and agility. That puts me beyond an ordinary 4th tier Great Knight speed. 4th tier fighters shouldn't be a real threat anymore. Even if I can't beat one, I can definitely outrun them. After upgrading ultimate speed, I took Mia to explore the valley while everyone else was still busy. It's a great spot. Underground spring water, large farmland patches, enough to sustain a whole battalion. A fortress here would be nearly impenetrable, but I don't have the manpower or royal permission to develop it yet, and anything I build without approval would just belong to the kingdom anyway. John came back grumbling that he'd searched the whole area and found nothing useful. No magic herbs, nothing. He pointed out that Alpha Kingdom troops have combed these outer mountain areas countless times already. I laughed and told him we'd head back tomorrow. That evening the officers reported in. We lost only 3 elite soldiers at the gate assault, with 16 wounded, including George. From the tribe we seized over 400 tons of grain, 500 or 600 weapons, all junk quality needing to be melted down, plus 400 human serfs, about 500 gold coins, and 500 beast hides. The real prize was the war results. 12 pighead professionals killed, 460 regular pigheads killed, and 880 captured, including 780 females and young ones. That's worth at least 10,000 gold coins. War merits came to 1 6th rank, 1 7th rank, 3 8th rank, and 74 9th rank, with Clay's group getting 1 8th rank and 10 9th rank. Clay's eyes were practically twitching. In just 3 months, his squad of 13 had earned nearly 5 8th rank merits, closing in on their goal of 12 to buy life source elixirs for everyone. I told Clay that John had already successfully brewed the wolf fire potions from the captured recipe, priced at 200 gold for outsiders or 1 9th rank merit internally. He immediately exchanged 5 merits for 5 potions. Just days ago, I could barely afford payroll. Now I'm sitting on tens of thousands in value. Crime really does pay. The next morning, Soldiers shuttled everything to the carts on the main road using wheelbarrows. Just as we were about to leave, John suddenly crouched by the roadside, poking at something on the ground. I walked over and saw him fingering some unknown animal droppings. I backed away in disgust, but John was thrilled. "My lord, this is magic beast horse dung. Fresh, probably from this morning. And from the surrounding tracks, it's a whole herd." My disgust vanished instantly. A magic horse herd. I couldn't help gloating at John. "See? Good thing I brought you along." I split the group immediately. Parker took all the soldiers, supplies, and prisoners back to Storm City as planned. I kept Mia, John, Clay, Eric, Thomas, and Gaddy, 6 professionals, and grabbed some shackles from the pighead prisoners' supplies to go track the herd. 3 days of tracking later, we spotted them. Clay recognized them right away. Flame horses. They're low-tier magic beasts, 3rd tier at most, usually 1st or 2nd. This was a small herd of 15. 1 2nd-tier stallion leading 4 1st-tier adult males, 5 1st-tier adult females, and 5 foals. Finding them was the easy part. Figuring out how to actually catch them was the real problem. I quickly realized 7 people couldn't round up a whole herd of flame horses by chasing them. So I turned to John for ideas. He said his sleep potion could knock out 1st-tier beasts, but probably wouldn't work well on the 2nd-tier stallion. He told me and Mia to focus on the stallion while the potion handled the rest. Then he spent an hour watching through the telescope until he spotted our opportunity, a patch of blue lawnling grass about a kilometer ahead, a favorite food for horse-type magic beasts, and the herd was drifting that way. I sent Mia to sneak over and sprinkle sleep potion on the grass, then spread purification potion along her path to hide her scent from the beast's sharp noses. After that, we spread out and surrounded the grazing area from 4 directions. Me alone, Mia behind the herd, John with Clay, and Eric, Thomas, and Gaddy together. Half an hour later the horses arrived and started eating without a care. Within 10 minutes the 5 foals collapsed. The mothers grew anxious, and the stallion rushed over to check, sensed something wrong, and let out a cry to flee. But they only made it a few hundred meters before all the mares and young males dropped too. The stallion started getting woozy himself, but he coughed out a ball of fire and snapped back awake. John yelled to move. All 7 of us charged from every direction. The stallion bolted straight toward Mia's position. Bad luck for him. She lassoed it and wrestled it down in seconds. 15 flame horses captured, just like that. Each 1st-tier one is worth 2,000 gold coins, but I'd never sell them. A magic beast cavalry squad is far stronger than a regular knight team. We shackled all the horses and started heading back. But half a day into the return trip, my danger sense fired off. The warning read, 10 people tracking us from the north, 5 kilometers out. 1 4th-tier great knight, 1 3rd-tier advanced mage, 2 3rd-tier advanced warriors, 3 2nd-tier, 3 1st-tier. Dangerous. A great knight paired with an advanced mage. That combination could take on a 5th-tier great warrior. And in the wilderness, humans are more dangerous than beasts. With our flame horse herd in tow, there was no way they'd let us pass peacefully. I told everyone. Clay suggested taking a side path and covering our tracks, but I shook my head and asked John if he could help us shake a 2nd or 3rd-tier mage. He said no. He didn't know that kind of magic and only had purification potions. If their mage came prepared, we couldn't lose them, so we'd have to fight. I gave orders. Gaddy and John keep walking with the horses, act normal. Clay, Eric, and Thomas hide 300 meters ahead and wait for my signal. Mia hides in the western tree line 100 meters up. I took position in the eastern trees right at the fork where the main road splits with a side path. 20 minutes later, hoofbeats came from the north. 10 riders galloped up and stopped at the fork to look around. A man dressed as a mage dismounted to examine tracks on both paths. That was my target. The real reason my advanced foresight flagged this group as dangerous was this mage. A 3rd-tier advanced mage protected by a 4th-tier great knight could match a 5th-tier fighter. The moment the mage stepped away from the knight and crouched to study the ground, I drew my enchanted bow to full. The enchanted arrow powered by Windchaser archery crossed the distance in a blink. The mage's spiritual senses detected it coming, but a mage's body is slower than a 3rd-tier pighead's. He couldn't dodge. The arrow hit him in the head, dead on the spot. With super foresight, I naturally took out the biggest threat first, the mage. With him dead, the rest were manageable. Even a 4th-tier Great Knight, without special skills or talents, might not beat me. The Great Knight screamed, "Lord Fick," as my arrow hit the mage. So the mage had status. All the more reason to leave no survivors. I immediately dropped a 3rd-tier warrior with my next shot. At my current archery level, killing ordinary low-tier professionals isn't hard anymore. The Great Knight grabbed the mage's body, threw it on his horse, and ordered everyone to flee down the main road. But I wasn't far away, so before they left my range I picked off one more 2nd-tier and one 1st-tier. That left 6 riders, and they ran straight into Mia's ambush. They'd been watching their backs, expecting the archer's allies to come from behind. Nobody expected a 4th-tier Great Warrior to burst out from the front. Mia caught the Great Knight completely off guard. He was still carrying the mage's corpse, which slowed his reaction. She wounded him badly, knocked him off his horse, and killed a 2nd-tier warrior in the same strike. The Great Knight knew he was done. He shouted at someone called Buck, a 3rd-tier warrior, to keep running and report back to Lord Fiss. Buck didn't hesitate and bolted. Mia tried to chase on horseback, but the wounded Great Knight blocked her. I'd grabbed one of the enemy's abandoned horses and was already riding up. One arrow finished the injured Great Knight. My absolute defense was about to get another upgrade. I called Mia, and we chased after the last 4. Clay's group had already engaged them up ahead. Eric used his magic crossbow to kill a 1st-tier, then tied up a 2nd-tier. Thomas handled the last 1st-tier. Clay took on the 3rd-tier warrior. His enchanted armor and iron plate let him hold on, stalling for time. But the 3rd-tier warrior saw through the plan, blasted Clay aside with full force, and ran for it. I rode past without stopping, telling Mia to clean up while I chased the last one alone. During the pursuit, I dumped points into my riding skill, pushing it to 2nd-tier. Once I closed the gap, I shot his horse out from under him. He tumbled and sprinted into the dense forest, figuring that a mere 2nd-tier knight couldn't use a bow in thick trees and he'd have the advantage in close combat. I followed him in without hesitation. My close combat can match a 4th-tier Great Knight, and ambushes don't work on me. Sure enough, within moments I sensed thick hostility from a patch of bushes. But I didn't shoot, I wanted answers. I put the bow away, drew my sword, and walked toward him. "Come out. I know you're there. My bow's behind me. Beat me and you can leave." He hesitated, then stepped out. I was just a 2nd-tier knight without a crossbow. Why would he be afraid? He charged immediately, wanting to finish fast before the 4th-tier woman caught up. It took me only a few exchanges to pin him down. Before I even started questioning him, he spat out a string of threats that told me exactly who he was. The raunchy Viscount family, the mother's clan of the kingdom's first prince. That's trouble. But I'd killed them all in the wilderness mountains where accidents happen all the time. It would take a while before anyone traced this back to me. I walked out of the forest carrying a bloody sword and a set of iron armor. Outside, I found both horses. Even the wounded one was worth saving since Storm City desperately needs warhorses. Near the fallen horse, I noticed a large beast-hide sack that must have dropped during the crash. Curious, I carefully cut it open with my sword. Inside was a young woman. I looked closer. Pointed ears, delicate features. An elf? No, a half-elf. When I first saw the girl inside the hide sack with pointed ears, I thought she was an elf. But her hair was brownish with mixed colors. From the original owner's memories, I knew pureblood elves have perfectly solid-colored hair. So this was a half-elf. I had no idea there were half-elf tribes in the wilderness mountains. The elf race lives far away in the elven forest on the western continent, nowhere near Alpha Kingdom. When Mia and Clay arrived and saw her, they were just as surprised. Mia confirmed that small half-elf communities do exist deep in the primeval forests of the mountains. They have elven blood, a natural connection to forests and magic beasts, and they're nearly impossible to find since the deep forests are full of powerful beasts. I wondered whether these people had captured her specifically for the first prince or for the raunchy family's own use. Clay pulled me aside with a worried look and started to say something about the raunchy Viscount family being the first prince's people. I cut him off and told him not to worry. This is the wilderness. Accidents happen, and tracing anything back to us won't be easy. I asked about the loot. The warriors had nothing special. The 4th-tier Great Knight carried a sword manual called Dawn Sword, trainable to 3rd tier. The mage Fick had a 1,000 gold banknote, 3rd tier enchanted armor, and a pile of earth element spells: sinkhole, shatter stone, earth spike, tremor sense, petrification, stone skin, and earth flow wall, ranging from 0 ring to 3rd ring. All earth type, which was exactly what I needed. But no potion recipes, no meditation techniques. Disappointing for a Viscount family's high-level mage serving the first prince. The Divine Eye assassins had better stuff. Then I picked up his magic notebook and froze. It was full of enchantment records, detailed experimental logs of successes and failures. This fic was also an enchantment constructor. I asked Clay if he'd searched thoroughly, hoping for an enchantment secret manual, but Clay confirmed there was nothing else. I'd have to work with the notebook alone. Maybe we could reverse engineer at least one enchantment technique from the successful experiments. As for the half-elf girl, she was unconscious and bound with magic shackles. I couldn't just leave her there, so I told Mia to carry her along. We collected 10 enemy warhorses and rode after John's group. Along the way, I upgraded absolute defense to advanced level, now quadrupling my physical, battle aura, and magical spirit defense. All 3 innate talents at advanced level. I wondered if I could fight a 5th-tier Great Warrior now. I also noted I had enough attribute points to level up my mage abilities once I got back. We caught up with John within half an hour. I handed him the enchantment notebook immediately. He dove into it for a solid 30 minutes before looking up. My lord, this is usable. By working backward from the successful experiments recorded here, I should be able to figure out at least one enchantment technique. I'll start as soon as we get back. The day after the ambush, we made it back to Storm City with the flame horses. Parker's group had arrived the day before with the pighead loot and prisoners. John grabbed the enchantment notebook and disappeared to study it. Fine by me. I'm too busy being a lord to do research myself. The raunchy family situation forced me to change plans. I couldn't sell the 880 pighead women, children, and elderly anymore. Flooding the market with pighead slaves would basically announce that Storm Territory sent an army into the Wilderness Mountains, and the raunchy family and first prince would connect the dots. So I sent all 880 to the mining island instead. It's an island, so escaping isn't really an option, though I posted Thomas there as an extra precaution. Since I wasn't selling the valuable prisoners, there was no reason to go to Grey Fortress personally. I sent Clay and Parker's 1st Infantry Squad to handle the war merit exchanges. Adding up everything including the leftover 0.6 from before, I had 3 6th rank, 4 7th rank, 5 8th rank, and 1 9th rank merit to spend. I went all in. 21 Phaeton potions, 10 1st-tier magic crossbows with explosive bolts, 10 2nd-tier magic crossbows with explosive bolts, 1 4th-tier magic giant crossbow with explosive bolts, and 10 3rd-tier enchanted piercing arrows. Next time, even a 5th-tier orc brings 2 battalions to Storm City, they'll regret it. I also gave Clay 22 Wolffire potions to sell to Klein at 4,000 gold. Basically buy 10 get 1 free, which Klein would definitely accept. Between that, the 1,000 gold from the mage, and selling 156 pighead soldier prisoners, we had over 5,000 gold. I told Clay to bring back 500 young male serfs and 100 ordinary contract scrolls. Time to expand the army again. After Clay left, I handled individual war merit exchanges. The squad leaders had discussed with their teams and decided to use collective merits for Phaeton potions, with the users compensating teammates in gold. 8 people qualified: Owen, Creel, Ram, Russell, Lori, Ron, Yuri, and Hawk. I had exactly 8 potions left. The next morning I upgraded my mage level. I dumped 71 attribute points into lava meditation. My head felt like it was going to explode as my spiritual power surged, my spirit sea expanded, and a tiny solidified seed formed inside it. The spirit seed, the foundation of a real mage. Once it stabilized, I was officially a 1st-tier junior mage. My panel now showed everything: 2nd-tier intermediate knight, 1st-tier junior mage, 3rd-tier maxed flame triple slash, 3rd-tier maxed windchaser archery, all 3 innate talents at advanced level, and 866 energy spirit points. So much to learn now. Water fairy potions for mage training, new spells, potion brewing, enchantment construction, plus sword techniques. Both potion making and enchanting are great moneymakers and would rapidly strengthen the territory. But before diving into magic studies, I needed to read those basic magic textbooks John keeps nagging me about. And before even that, I had to plan the territory's next phase. September brings the harvest, and after that the serfs will have lighter workloads. The mining island workers have been pulled back too. I'm going to use the extra labor to build new fortifications. Storm City is too small for what I have planned. Population growth alone demands expansion. Expanding outward with a new outer wall would be massive, slow work, and the south and east terrain doesn't support it anyway. So after studying the layout, I decided to build 2 new castles, one to the west and one to the north, forming a triangle. Later, when we have enough people and strength, we'll connect all 3 with tall walls into one giant fortress. This year we'll start with the northern castle since that's the smaller project. I still need to survey the exact site. While I was deep in castle planning, Gaddy came in to report. "My lord, the half-elf girl has woken up." I blinked. Right? I almost forgot about her. In the guest room of the Baron's residence, the half-elf girl was curled up in a corner crying. When I walked in, she started shaking with fear. I sat down at a distance and spoke softly, telling her I was the one who rescued her from the bad guys. Otherwise, she'd be in a much worse situation right now. That only made her cry harder. I looked at Mia and asked if I was really that scary. Mia replied with a straight face, "My lord, she was just on your bed." I quickly pointed out it wasn't my bed. Mia said nothing. I actually laughed. I'd never seen Mia joke before. She's always been dead serious since joining me. The enslavement seal makes her loyal and obedient, but her personality is still her own. I tried comforting the girl some more. Useless. So I put on a stern face and ordered her to sit on the bed and talk properly. That scared her even more, but at least she obeyed and stood up. That's when her full figure came into view, and I was completely caught off guard. She'd been curled up in that hide sack the whole time, so I'd only noticed her cute face. I had no idea she was so well developed. She stumbled because of the magic shackles on her wrists and ankles, nearly fell, and the movement made everything bounce. I couldn't look away. Mia coughed pointedly. I snapped out of it and told Mia she should drink more water if her throat was bothering her. I asked the girl her name and age. She said she was Wendy, 36 years old. I sat bolt upright in shock. 36? But Mia explained that elves mature at 72 and half-elves at 36, so Wendy had literally just become an adult. I tried explaining again that I'd really saved her and originally planned to let her go, but she cut me off, begging to be released. I told her not to interrupt people. It's rude and could get her punished. That scared her into burying her face against her chest, which immediately melted my irritation. I asked about her background. She said she was just an ordinary half-elf from her tribe, a second-tier life mage. She'd snuck out looking for food and gotten captured. A life mage. That's basically the ultimate healer. Life mages are incredible at healing and support magic. Before I could ask more, her stomach growled loudly. She buried her face in embarrassment again. I couldn't handle it and immediately called out to Gaddy to bring bread, 2 salted duck eggs, half a firetail duck, and a cup of milk. As I listed each item, Wendy's eyes got brighter and brighter. Definitely a foodie. I told her to keep talking about her abilities while we waited. She listed her spells. 0 ring flower, sea purification and minor healing. 1st ring wind of life and sound of life. 2nd ring emerald blessing and starlight divine tree. And she could also brew 1st-tier life spring water. Life spring water. That's an incredible thing. It heals better than human 1st-tier healing potions, and more importantly, it repairs fatigue and mental strain, effectively extending how long knights and warriors can train. It's basically a training accelerator with no usage limits. It's not technically a training potion, but it's even more popular than training potions. Now I really didn't want to let this half-elf go. I glanced at Mia for confirmation. She nodded. The 3rd-tier magic shackles meant Wendy's magic couldn't exceed 3rd tier, so she was probably telling the truth. When Gaddy brought in the food, Wendy's eyes locked onto the tray and didn't move. I smiled. Then my smile froze. She demolished everything in under 15 minutes, faster than I eat, and looked up at me wanting more. I glanced at her stomach. Flat as before, though something above it seemed a bit bigger. I ended up serving little Wendy 3 more rounds of food, each including a pound of red flame porcupine meat. That's 3rd-tier magic beast meat, before she finally let out a satisfied burp. She's only 2nd tier, but eats like a monster. Now I completely believed her story about sneaking out of her tribe to find food. No wilderness tribe could keep up with that appetite. Once she was full, She seemed braver. I brought up employment terms. She immediately begged to go home, but I dangled the bait. All the delicious food she could eat every day, firetail duck, sweetbread, seafood, never going hungry, plus 10 gold coins a year, and a magic contract guaranteeing I wouldn't harm her. She wavered, then asked two things: no slave collar, and could she add conditions to the contract. I agreed to both and mentioned I'd take Mia's enslavement seal off too once I reached 4th tier. When he accepted the deal, I told her to rest for a few days until I got a 2nd tier contract scroll, then I'd remove her shackles. With my new little healer secured, I moved on to castle planning. I gathered the cement plant workers, brick kiln masons, and blacksmiths to discuss building new fortifications. John and I have no time to develop proper cement, so we'll use the existing morite mixture. Once I master petrification as a 2nd tier mage, I can fuse the bricks and stones into solid blocks for extra strength. The blacksmiths had made a breakthrough. After I redesigned the blast furnace, they'd successfully produced steel through repeated experiments. I told them to start forging long steel bars or rods to reinforce the castle walls. Even short bars would work if the technique wasn't there yet. After 6 days of surveying, I picked the sites. The North Castle goes 1.1 kilometers north of Storm City, close enough to the Storm River to dig a moat. The West Castle sits on high ground 900 meters west, great for defense. I added protruding wall towers, watchtowers, and killbox gate designs to strengthen everything further. The factories would start stockpiling materials now, and construction begins right after the autumn harvest. During those 6 days, the 8 people who'd taken Phaeton potions finished their breakthroughs. 6 succeeded, but 2 failed. Ron and Yuri, the 1st and 2nd archer team leaders. They were talented archers, but hadn't actually reached peak elite soldier level. Will and Lori had let them exchange early, worried potions might run out, planning for them to save the potions for later. But the 2 couldn't resist and used them prematurely. I scolded them, encouraged them, and issued a new rule. Nobody exchanges for potions until they've reached peak level. I assured everyone that as long as they earn merits, potions will keep coming. Counting Wendy, the territory now has 18 professionals, and we haven't even tamed the flame horses yet. The day after I finished castle planning, Clay and Parker returned. When I saw the 4th tier magic giant crossbow on the flatbed cart, I was stunned. This thing isn't a crossbow, it's a crossbow siege engine. The bowstring is over 2 meters long and the bolts are 5 meters. No wonder even 5th tier fighters won't take a direct hit. Even without magic enhancement, a regular version of this would make 4th tier warriors run. That sparked an idea. Regular crossbow carts, I can build those. And even better, counterweight trebuchets. Back on Earth, the Mongols used improved trebuchets with lever and counterweight principles that could hurl 150 kilogram stones over 3 to 400 meters. I called them my best carpenters. The lead carpenter Forsen said he knew how to build catapults, but insisted they could only throw 20 or 30 pounds at most. I told him my design was different, sketched it out, and explained the mechanics. The carpenters stared blankly. They asked if it would really work. I told them to just build it, and we'd test it together. Trying to explain lever principles to these guys would be pointless. I told the carpenters to just build one first, and we'd improve it through testing. Talking theory was getting us nowhere. While they worked on the trebuchet over the next few days, I split my time between training with water fairy potions for lava meditation, studying basic magic theory, and learning my first one-ring fire spell, Small Fireball. I also sent Clay back to Grey Fortress to buy 3 2nd-tier contract scrolls for Wendy. 6 days later, the carpenters finished the trebuchet based on my design. We set it up east of Storm City for testing. After I made some adjustments, we loaded the first stone, about 50 pounds. I gave the order. A huge bang, and the stone flew through the air. Everyone watching went completely silent with shock. It actually worked. The first test shot launched a 50-pound stone about 100 meters. Everyone watching, Mia, little Wendy, my guards, stood there with their mouths hanging open. The carpenters who built it went from shock to excitement in seconds. I told them it wasn't enough. We need to launch 200-pound boulders, 300 meters. This time nobody doubted me. The principle is simple: a lever with a heavy counterweight on one end. Pull down the other end, load the stone, release, and the counterweight slams down to fling the projectile. By changing the lever length and counterweight, You adjust the range and payload. I added a winch and pulley system to speed up reloading, and draft horses can pull up the counterweight. My goal is 30 to 50 support crew and about 10 operators per trebuchet. I left 30 guards behind to help with testing and headed back. When he had signed a 20-year contract with me 2 days earlier. Her conditions were simple: guaranteed food. She'll go on strike if she goes hungry, and no sharing a bed. She sleeps alone. I agreed. There are other things to do anyway. Clay was already using the 5 wolf fire potions I gave him. He's been a first-tier knight for over 4 years, so with the potions he should break through to second tier soon. I put Eric on patrol rotation with Roger for the northwestern mountains. On the walk back, Wendy wouldn't stop talking. Since signing the contract, she'd become a completely different person. Chatty, curious, constantly asking questions. She asked about the trebuchet, then about lunch, then begged for firetail duck. I told her we're saving those for breeding. She kept going until I snapped and told her to go brew some first-tier life spring water. She pouted and said she needs celestial spirit liquid, which requires a life magic array, and she hasn't finished setting hers up yet. I was losing my mind, so I offered her a second job. She immediately said that's not in the contract and demanded extra pay. I shrugged and said fine. I'll give the sugar-making work to someone else. That got her attention. I'd already tested boiling sugar from those sweet wild plants my soldiers found during the porcupine hunt. The sugar content is incredibly high. Sugar is a luxury in Alpha Kingdom. Currently, only honey exists as a sweetener. If I can mass-produce brown sugar, or even white sugar, the profits would be enormous. Winnie had tasted a piece of my brown sugar yesterday and begged all of it off me. The moment she heard sugar factory, she practically screamed that she'd take the job. No extra pay needed. I put old Charlie in charge of helping her set it up. With the chatterbox occupied, I gathered my infantry and spear squad leaders to reorganize the army. Previously, I'd kept infantry and spearmen separate because we had too many recruits, but after several battles the soldiers are experienced enough for mixed units that can operate independently. I merged Parker's and Jenkins' squads into the new 1st and 2nd Infantry squads. Creel's and Russell's became the 3rd and 4th. I created 2 brand new squads, the 5th and 6th, led by Owen and Ram, who were promoted from deputy positions. Each veteran squad transferred soldiers to the new ones, 20 each from the 1st and 2nd, 10 each from the 3rd and 4th. That way the veteran units stay strong while the new ones can build combat power quickly. For night squads, I plan to expand by 2 more under Eric and Thomas once they're back after the harvest. The archer squad will recruit on its own. Will confine however many archers with natural talent he can. I also established an auxiliary militia system. All able-bodied male serfs will be organized for basic training during their free time. This builds a recruitment pipeline for the army and provides crew for the trebuchets. The trebuchet operators themselves will come from my personal guards, since they're already involved in testing. George will command them. With the reorganization assigned, I'm going to focus on training magic and sword techniques until the autumn harvest begins. A month flew by, and it was September 1st, nearly half a year since I arrived in this world. Time to wrap up training and check my results. I'd maxed out all 3 sword techniques at 3rd tier, Flame Triple Slash, Holy Light Cross Slash, and Dawn Sword. I'd also learned and maxed First Ring Small Fireball, gotten Potion Studies to 2nd tier limit, and pushed Lava Meditation to 214 out of 1,000 using 10 Water Fairy potions. I had 173 attribute points saved up. Potion Studies was the worst. Half my training time went into reading magic fundamentals just to qualify for entry level. I only needed to get the basics down, then used attribute points to push it the rest of the way. I fused all 3 sword techniques together. New memories flooded my mind for a solid 15 minutes before settling. The result: Extreme Flame 4 Direction Slash, already at 3rd tier with room to reach 4th. The fusion skipped the lower tiers entirely, which explains why it took so long to absorb. Testing it out, the power far exceeded Flame Triple Slash at the same tier level. Higher tier techniques are simply stronger. Something to keep in mind when facing noble families. They all have top-tier secret techniques. After sleeping off the exhaustion, I checked in with old Charlie about the harvest. Everything was ready. We'd start in 2 or 3 days. With only 2,000 acres to harvest, but over 1,600 young men and 1,100 young women available, It should take just a few days. I told him to get everyone involved and finish before the orcs show up. Harvest season always brings raids. The orcs hit the bandit hideouts in the Grey Mountains first, then come for noble territories like mine once those are picked clean. I headed to check on the trebuchet progress, but stopped in my tracks when Clay and his knight squad thundered past on flame horses. I was stunned. The horses were already tamed? Mia explained it was all Wendy's doing. Her elven blood gives her a natural connection with magic beasts, and as a life mage she could communicate with the flame horses directly. She'd tamed the entire herd in just a few days. Clay circled back when he spotted me. I noticed his aura had reached second-tier knight level. He confirmed he'd broken through a few days ago thanks to the wolf fire potions. He offered me the second-tier stallion as my mount, but I told him to keep it. With exactly 10 adult flame horses matching his 10-man knight squad, it made more sense to keep them together as a dedicated magic beast knight squad rather than splitting the horses up. That way we'd get the full power of the flame horses in formation. Clay and his squad were thrilled when I gave them all 10 adult flame horses. I told them not to thank me. As the Magic Beast Knight squad, they'd be taking on the toughest assault missions from now on. Clay said knights dying in a charge is the most glorious death. I cut him off sharply. I don't want glorious deaths, I want victories. He understood. I sent them off to practice mounted combat with the flame horses and headed to the trebuchet testing grounds. When I arrived, I watched one launch a 100-plus-pound boulder over 200 meters. 2 more fired right after with different stone weights. But these 3 were huge, way too big for the castle walls. I called over George and Forson. They explained that to throw stones over 100 pounds more than 200 to 300 meters, the trebuchets had to be this size. The smaller ones could only handle stones under 80 pounds. But they'd figured out a solution. The giant trebuchets could be placed 30 to 50 meters behind the walls and still land stones 200 meters beyond them. That meant I'd need to adjust the new castle designs. George reported that all 9 trebuchets, 3 giant and 6 large, had passed testing after many experiments. He'd also created detailed range tables matching different stone weights to different counterweights, just as I'd instructed. I told him to pick positions around Storm City, set them up, run a few more tests, and report back on crew requirements. I toured the other facilities and ordered the brick kiln, cement plant, salt evaporation site, and shipyard all shut down temporarily. Workers needed to come inside the castle for the harvest and the orc raids that would follow. The next day, I issued combat alerts to every squad. This time I wasn't sending troops out for ambushes. Multiple orc armies might show up at once, and getting caught in the open during an ambush would be disastrous. So the plan was straightforward: wall defense assignments and reserve positioning. Simple enough that I didn't even call a meeting. I sent Clay's Magic Beast Knight squad on patrol. Flame horses move fast enough to cut scouting time by a third, giving me time to adjust our response based on enemy numbers. With our current defenses, the mountain orc tribes probably wouldn't even trigger my super foresight danger warning. On September 4th, the harvest officially began. Every serf participated, all hands on deck. The 2,000 acres only yielded about 210 tons, barely a dent in our food needs. We still rely on trading salt with Klein for grain, and true food self-sufficiency is years away. But these fields represent hope for everyone in Storm City. I can't neglect agriculture just because we have profitable trade goods. Strong rule is built on farming culture, not commerce, especially early on. Even if it's partly for show, I have to take it seriously. With everyone working together, we finished harvesting in just 2 days and got everything inside the castle. The remaining field work could wait until after the orc raids. The orcs showed up right on schedule. The day after we stored the grain, Clay rode back to report. A goblin battalion and a pygmy battalion were both heading our way simultaneously. 2 battalions? Did they get lost? I barely have any grain. They're sending 2,000 troops to rob me? Are they insane? I couldn't believe it. Clay said it looked like a coincidence. They were coming from different directions. Just our luck, I said. Alert all units. Prepare for battle. After I gave the battle order, Storm City came alive. The veterans were excited. Fighting under me has always meant victory, and orcs just mean more war merits. Their confidence even rubbed off on the 200-plus new recruits. Everyone had watched the trebuchets being tested over the past 2 days, and just seeing those massive machines standing ready made the soldiers feel secure. Units moved to their positions. Parker's first squad and Owen's fifth held the south wall with 3 archer teams. Jenkins' second and Ram's sixth defended the west wall with 3 more archer teams. Creel's third and Russell's fourth stayed in reserve. The east and north walls are hard to set up siege ladders against, so I only posted a dozen guards there to watch and signal. The magic crossbows were split between east and south, with the 4th-tier giant crossbow mounted on the east wall. The 6 large trebuchets went 3 each on the east and south walls. The 3 giant trebuchets were positioned behind the walls, 2 south, 1 east, with auxiliary crews of 50 per giant and 20 per large unit. I organized 200 surf auxiliaries for carrying wounded, with Wendy and John handling treatment. If needed, Wendy would go up on the walls to cast Flower Sea Purification and Emerald Blessing to boost morale and stamina. Clay and Roger's night squads were stationed on the south wall, ready to charge out the south gate. Eric and Thomas were assigned to the east wall. Hogg, a newly promoted first-tier warrior from the guards, took over mining island duty. 3 hours later, I spotted the orc army through my telescope. The goblins and pygmies had merged into one column, with captured grain and human serfs trailing behind. Clay reported the goblins had grabbed those serfs from the Grey Mountain bandits. When 2,000 orcs appeared in view, the new soldiers got rattled. I stood between the south and east walls and shouted to everyone, "Soldiers, if you're scared, look at our storm cannons." I renamed the trebuchets on the spot. You've seen what they do. Think an orc skull can survive that? No, no, the officers roared back, and every soldier joined in, screaming out their fear. Victory belongs to Storm City. Fight for the territory, fight for yourselves. Kill these orcs. Kill, kill, kill. The killing intent rising from the walls was palpable. I was satisfied. The 2 orc leaders had agreed to split the attack. The goblin chief Gosha took the south wall, the pygmy chief Mok took the east. Whoever broke through first would claim 2/3 of the loot. Both were 5th-tier warriors who'd attacked Storm City before. They'd heard the new lord was just a weak 1st-tier professional, and with 2,000 troops between them, they figured this would be easy. Gosha attacked first. No scouting, no probing, just like the pigheads before him. He threw 3 squads straight at the south wall with 3 more right behind, planning to overwhelm us in one push. When they entered trebuchet range, Parker held fire. He waited until they reached bow range, then called, "Archers, fire!" 30 arrows flew and dropped several goblins. I held back my enchanted bow too, saving it for sniping professionals at the right moment. The archers got off several more volleys before the goblins reached the wall, taking down over 20. The archers pulled back, shields went up to block return fire, and the goblins planted their ladders. They started climbing without needing orders, howling the whole way, until logs and rocks rained down and knocked them off. When goblin officers started shouting commands to reorganize, I picked off 2 first-tier goblin professionals with normal arrows. That shut the rest of them up fast. The first wave of 3 squads stalled. The second wave of 3 squads surged forward. Parker ordered the storm cannons to prepare. When the second wave of 3 goblin squads entered range, Parker gave the order for large storm cannons loaded with 20-pound stones at 300 meters. 2 giant storm cannons loaded with 100-pound stones at 250 meters. 5 thunderous blasts went off almost simultaneously. 12 20-pound and 4 100-pound stones arced through the air and crashed into the goblin formation. The 100-pound boulders turned goblins into paste on impact. The 20-pound ones ripped off arms and legs and split heads like watermelons. And the stones kept rolling after hitting, taking out another dozen or more goblins each. One 100-pound boulder even killed a first-tier goblin outright and wounded a third-tier one. The goblins froze in shock. Then a second volley hit them before their chief Gosha screamed at his 4th-tier squad leader Golo to keep charging. Golo snapped out of it and led his troops in a desperate sprint. They took 2 more volleys before reaching the wall, losing a 5th of their force. Many of those weren't dead yet, just lying in the field screaming, torn apart, which crushed goblin morale even further. During their mad dash, I picked off another 1st-tier and 2nd-tier with my enchanted bow. I even caught Golo dodging a stone and put a piercing arrow through his chest, then followed up with a kill shot. Losing their 4th-tier leader threw the attack into chaos, and Gosha had no choice but to sound the retreat. As they pulled back, we hit them with 2 more volleys, this time all 20-pound stones, 64 total. Between both barges, the storm cannons killed or crippled about 150 goblins, including several professionals. The south wall cheered. Another crushing victory. Over on the east wall, the pygmies had been beaten back too. Even without me there, they had the 4th-tier magic giant crossbow, Mia, and their own storm cannons. The pygmies lost around 180, including a 3rd-tier professional killed by a boulder and a 4th-tier taken down by while operating the giant crossbow with Mia's support. I immediately sent Creel's 3rd squad out to collect heads for war merits and burn the bodies before the heat caused problems. That's when I noticed one downside of the storm cannons. They tend to smash orc heads apart, and the kingdom identifies orc rank by the energy signature in their brains. Crushed heads mean lost merits. Clay warned me that cleaning the battlefield in front of the enemy might provoke them. That's exactly what I wanted. I told him to have Creel line up all the professional orcs' heads on top of the walls where the enemy could see them. If the orcs don't lose their temper, they won't make mistakes. Sure enough, the goblins and pygmies were furious watching us collect their people's heads, but none dared attack again. The pygmy chief Mok went to the goblin camp to talk with Gosha. They'd both noticed something I hadn't expected them to catch. The storm cannons had no magical energy signature. Mok's soldiers had gotten close enough on the east wall to confirm it. These were purely mechanical siege weapons, not magical ones. That changed everything for them. If they could capture Storm City and steal the trebuchet technology, they could present it to the Empire. The 2 chiefs made a deal on the spot and started planning their next attack to break through our walls and seize the secret of the storm cannons. The north wall ambush was over in minutes. With that many magic crossbows lined up, the orc professionals who'd climbed over didn't even get a chance to draw weapons properly. After we finished them off, I immediately split our forces. Clay's Magic Beast Knights squad galloped back to reinforce the south wall, and will hauled the 4th-tier magic giant crossbow back to the east wall where it belonged. I grabbed the archer team and climbed up the north wall myself to try to catch the 5th-tier pygmy chief Mok. Mia was already up there. She'd chased him the moment he ran, but couldn't stop him. "My lord, that 5th-tier pygmy was incredibly decisive," she reported. "He didn't even slow down to fight me, and I'm only 4th tier. He just kept running without looking back." That stung. The 5th-tier goblin chief Gosha had been finished off by the magic giant crossbow bolt, which meant I didn't personally kill him, so no energy spirit points for me. I'd been counting on getting the pygmy chief's points to make up for it, but this Mok was too shrewd. He'd abandoned his ally without a second thought the instant he sensed danger. I closed my eyes and focused on my hostility sense. I could feel Mok's presence rapidly moving away, already well beyond pursuit range. No point chasing. I called over a squad of personal guards to keep watch on the north wall, then led Mia and the archers back to the south, where the real fighting was still raging. The main battle on the east and south walls was going exactly as I'd planned. My night battle preparations had paid off massively. The moment the orc armies tried to sneak forward under cover of darkness, dozens of fire arrows and burning stone projectiles rained down onto the straw fields we'd laid out earlier. The whale oil weed mixed and caught instantly, and within seconds a wall of flames stretched across the ground in front of both walls, lighting up everything within 300 meters bright as day. The orcs who'd been creeping forward in the dark suddenly found themselves completely exposed. You could see the panic hit them. They froze, not knowing whether to charge or retreat. That hesitation cost them dearly. The storm cannons opened up with volley after volley. Stones ranging from 20 to 100 pounds came crashing down into their formations with devastating accuracy, now that the gunners could see their targets perfectly. The orcs were right back in the nightmare from the daytime battle. Bodies smashed apart, limbs torn off, screams everywhere. The 4th-tier orc officers on both sides tried to rally their troops, pushing them to sprint through the killing zone as fast as possible. Some made it to the walls, but by that point morale had completely collapsed. These soldiers had been shaken during the day, and now they were being slaughtered again in what was supposed to be their advantage, a night attack. The only reason they kept fighting at all was because their 5th-tier chiefs had personally ordered this assault to create a distraction for the north wall infiltration. The 4th-tier officers couldn't disobey. But the support from their chiefs never came. The soldiers on the walls fought on, waiting for the signal that never arrived. When I reached the south wall, I noticed the east side had already gone quiet. The pygmies were pulling back in orderly retreat. Clearly Mach had made it back and immediately ordered withdrawal. Smart move. He knew the infiltration had failed, and there was no point throwing more lives away. This was exactly what I'd expected, so I didn't try to stop them. I just had we'll keep the giant crossbow positioned on the east wall as insurance, and moved every other available fighter to the south. Extra archers, professionals, everyone. The south wall was now heavily reinforced. The effect was immediate. With more archers raining arrows and more professionals holding the wall, goblin casualties skyrocketed. They were getting cut down faster than they could climb. The fourth-tier goblin officer leading the attack eventually noticed something was off. The east side had gone way too quiet, and it didn't sound like a breakthrough. It sounded like the fighting had simply stopped. He sent a second-tier goblin to investigate, and the scout came back with the news. The pygmies had completely withdrawn. The fourth-tier goblin instantly understood what that meant. If the pygmies pulled out, their chief Mach must have given the order. And if Mach retreated, it meant the infiltration plan had failed, which meant Chief Gosha was likely dead or captured. Continuing the attack alone was suicide. He ordered an immediate retreat. The goblins disengaged and started pulling back into the darkness. I'd been waiting for this. The moment I saw them break, I gave the signal. Clay's magic beast knight squad burst out of the south gate on their flame horses, followed by Roger's regular knight squad. They tore into the retreating goblins at full gallop. Against soldiers who'd already lost all will to fight, the cavalry was devastating. Far more efficient than wasting storm cannon ammunition on scattered, fleeing targets. And unlike the trebuchets, swords and lances don't smash heads beyond recognition, so every kill counted for war merits. I let them chase until the goblins passed beyond the firelight, then recalled both squads. No point risking an ambush in the dark for a few more kills. I sent cleanup teams out to collect heads and burn bodies, then went to get some sleep. The orcs were broken. I was certain they'd flee the territory overnight. The next morning, I walked the walls to confirm. The orc camps were empty. Both armies had vanished in the night. At the command post, Parker and Jenkins had the full numbers ready. The night battle cost us just 7 dead and 11 wounded. Incredibly light for fighting 2,000 orcs. We'd killed 398 goblins and 162 pygmies overnight. Combined with the daytime results, total war merits came to 57 9th rank, 9 8th rank, 3 7th rank, 2 6th rank, and 1 5th rank. An enormous haul. Clay's group earned 4 8th rank merits from this battle alone, putting them at just 5 away from their goal of 12. Individual soldier merits were still being tallied. Each squad needed to submit their own reports first, and the units that pulled Night Watch hadn't filed yet. I noticed Clay wasn't at the briefing. Creel explained. At dawn when they'd gone to inspect the goblin camp, they found 2 distinct trails leading away. One headed northwest, obviously the goblins' retreat path, but a second trail went west, following the coastline, and it was clearly a large group. Clay had taken his squad to investigate. West along the coast, I said. That's toward the sea cliffs. Creel confirmed, a wide, obvious trail of many people and heavy cargo. I thought about it. The goblins had come from the Grey Mountains carrying stolen grain and human serfs as war trophies. An army fleeing for its life in the middle of the night wouldn't bother dragging along slow-moving prisoners and heavy supply carts. That would get them killed. So someone else had grabbed those spoils during the chaos. Bandits from the Grey Mountains, most likely, following the goblin army and waiting for an opportunity to steal what the goblins had stolen first. I couldn't let Clay handle that alone. Parker, assemble your first squad. We're going to back up Clay. Parker ran out to gather his men. But before we could leave, one of Roger's apprentice knights came galloping in. Hale, the most talented of the serf-born riders. Roger's squad had gone on their regular northwestern patrol and discovered something unexpected. My lord, the pygmies have barely crossed the Cane River. They're moving slowly. But on our side of the river, we found a huge number of orc corpses scattered along the bank, mostly goblins, with only a few pygmies mixed in. And among the dead, we identified the 4th-tier goblin officer who led the retreat last night. Jenkins and Creel stared at each other in confusion. Had the orcs been attacked by something else? I understood immediately. The The 5th-tier pygmy chief Mach had done this. He knew the goblin chief Gosha was dead. He'd watched it happen and didn't lift a finger to help. With Gosha gone, the goblin army had no 5th-tier leader. So on the retreat, Mach ambushed the goblin column at the river crossing. He'd slaughter their remaining professionals, then march into the mountains and take over the weakened goblin tribe to compensate for his own losses. Cold, calculating, and brilliant in a ruthless way. And it meant free war merits for me. Orc heads just sitting by the riverbank waiting to be collected. Creel, take your 3rd squad out immediately. Bring back every head you can find. Those are all war merits we didn't have to fight for. What I didn't realize at the time was that Mach's ambush had a deeper purpose beyond just seizing the goblin tribe. His real priority was making sure no goblin survived to spread the word about Storm City's trebuchets. Mach wanted to keep the storm cannon secret for himself. He planned to present it to the Empire as his own discovery, and he couldn't have that kind of intelligence leaking through goblin survivors. Every goblin who'd seen those weapons had to die. I had no idea someone was already eyeing my storm cannons. After sending Creel's 3rd squad to collect the riverside heads, I took Mia and Parker's 1st squad to chase down the thieves who'd stolen my war spoils along the coastline. We hadn't gone 5 kilometers before we ran into Sam, one of Clay's riders, coming back with a report. Just as I'd guessed, a bandit group of about 150 men had raided the goblin camp during the night chaos and made off with the grain and human serfs. They had 1 2nd-tier warrior and 2 1st-tier fighters leading them. Clay's magic beast knight squad had caught up to them at the Cane River, but the bandits were smart about it. The moment they spotted mounted knights on magic horses bearing down on them, they abandoned everything, grain, prisoners, all of it, and sprinted for wooden rafts they'd left on the riverbank. Clay's squad only managed to cut down a dozen or so stragglers who couldn't make it to the rafts in time. Once the bandits crossed the river, the knights couldn't follow. "Did you get any alive?" I asked. 5 prisoners, Sam confirmed. "Good. These bandits won't be running for long. The Grey Mountain bandits survive not because they're strong, but because the mountains are vast and they're good at hiding. But with live prisoners who know where the hideout is, we just needed to move fast before they relocated." At the river, I split up the force. I took 20 soldiers and escorted the 200-plus rescued serfs and 80-some tons of grain back to Storm City. The bandit hunt I left to Clay, Parker, and Mia. For a bunch of low-tier bandits, that was more than enough firepower. I didn't need the energy spirit points from a few 1st and 2nd-tier bandits. My time was better spent back home studying spells. That afternoon, Creel returned with an impressive haul from the Riverside Massacre, 426 goblin heads and 114 pygmy heads, including 1 4th-tier goblin, 1 3rd-tier, 2 2nd-tier goblins, 2 2nd-tier pygmies, 5 1st-tier goblins, and 3 1st-tier pygmies. The fact that pygmy professional corpses were still there told me the pygmy chief Mach must have just finished the ambush right before Roger's patrol arrived. Otherwise, he would have taken his own people's bodies. Either way, it was free merits I didn't have to fight for. 35 9th rank, for 8th rank, 1 7th rank, and 1 6th rank. Adding everything up, my total war merit stockpile now stood at 1 5th rank, 3 6th rank, for 7th rank, 13 8th rank, and 92 9th rank. An enormous fortune in merits. 3 days later, Clay and Parker came home with another 300-plus serfs, 50-some bandit prisoners, 60-odd tons of grain, and a pile of mismatched weapons. The bandit hideout had been cleaned out. Individual soldier merits had been tallied by then. Plenty of soldiers had earned enough for a 9th rank merit, but after the Ron and Yuri incident, my rule was firm. No breakthrough potions until you've reached peak level. Only 3 people qualified this time. D'Amico and Diera, the deputy captains of the 3rd and 4th squads. Each took a Phaeton potion, and Sam from the Knight squad had peaked as an apprentice knight and earned a life source elixir. I spent 2 days thinking about what to do with all these merits. Originally, I'd considered exchanging them for more magic crossbows and potions, but with the storm cannons working and winch-powered crossbow cards coming next, the need for expensive magic weapons wasn't as urgent anymore. Instead, I decided to make a private deal. I sent Clay to Grey Fortress to ask Commander Klein if he, or rather, the Duke Lincoln family behind him, would be interested in a merit trade. Private merit transactions are strictly illegal in the kingdom, punishable by full confiscation. which is why I had Clay invite Klein to meet at the Cane River mouth instead of doing business at the fortress. 2 days later, Clay returned on his flame horse, saying Klein agreed and was already on his way. I immediately had Parker's first squad load all the orc heads onto carts and march to the river mouth. I also brought along some brown sugar and distilled liquor. I don't have my own merchant caravan yet, so I figured I'd see if Klein would act as a sales agent. Just a matter of sharing some profit. The next day at noon, Klein finally arrived. He took one look at the rows of loaded carts behind me and whistled. "Levi, my friend, looks like you've had quite the haul." "Commander Klein, I really did stumble into some good luck this time," I said, trotting out my usual excuse. Klein's eye twitched. "Every single time I send people to his fortress to exchange merits, I claim it was luck or a lucky find. He doesn't believe a word of it anymore. But apparently his family told him not to dig into my affairs, not to share any capital city news with me. Just trade and nothing else. Just tell me the numbers," he said. "How much are we talking about that you need a private deal? 1 5th rank, 3 6th rank, for 7th rank, 13 8th rank, and 92 9th rank." Klein sucked in a sharp breath. That was more than his entire battalion earned during their last major fortress victory. And I'd done it in barely half a year with a territory he knew started from almost nothing. He glanced at an old man standing beside him, probably someone from the Duke's household, then asked simply, "What do you want in exchange?" "3 things," I said. "A first-tier warrior training potion recipe, a second-tier knight training potion recipe, and a second-tier mage training potion recipe. And no strings attached to any of them." The reason I went through all the trouble of arranging a private deal with Klein was simple. The kingdom's merit exchange system only lets you redeem potions, not potion recipes. Or if they do offer recipes, they come with so many restrictions they're practically useless. I need to consume way too many potions personally, and the territory needs them too. Both John and I are second-tier potion masters, so getting unrestricted recipes is the most cost-effective path. When I laid out my request, a first-tier warrior recipe, a second-tier knight recipe, and a second-tier mage recipe, all without conditions, Klein and the old man beside him both frowned. Klein shook his head. "Sorry, Levi. That's not possible. I'd half expected that. The big noble families and the royal house keep recipes locked down so they can keep selling finished potions forever." Klein offered double the kingdom's price for potions instead, but I shook my head and tried a different angle. What if I traded recipes for recipes? I offered my first-tier mage potion recipe, my first-tier knight potion recipe, and my second-tier warrior potion recipe, plus all my war merits. In exchange, I wanted a second-tier mage training potion recipe. It felt like a terrible deal for me, so I tacked on additional demands. 3 5th-tier magic crossbow bolts, 5 4th-tier bolts, and 10 3rd-tier bolts. The old man spoke up before Klein could respond, asking if my mage recipe came with the main ingredient seeds. Klein introduced him as Horde Lincoln, his uncle. I figured Klein wouldn't risk harming me over this amount. I have the Tulip family behind me after all. Horde thought it over and agreed. We signed a magic contract. The Lincoln family's recipe and the crossbow bolts would be delivered to Grey Fortress for me to pick up or have sent to Storm City. With the deal done, I brought out my real sales pitch, Storm liquor and brown sugar. "To celebrate our deal, try some Storm territory specialties," I said, handing Klein a bowl of distilled liquor. Klein, clearly a drinking man, grabbed it eagerly and took a huge gulp. His eyes bulged, he sputtered half of it out, and started coughing violently. Everyone stared at him wondering if it was that bad. "Take it slow," I laughed. "It really is strong." Horde tried a careful sip and his eyes lit up. "Excellent liquor." I quoted my price, 1 silver coin per pound. Horde immediately understood I was proposing a trade deal. Then I brought out the brown sugar. Neither of them had ever seen anything like it. They tasted it and went speechless. Sugar is a noble luxury. Only honey exists as a sweetener in the kingdom. Horde asked seriously about production volume and pricing. 1 gold coin per pound. About 800 pounds monthly. I can supply the Lincoln family with 500 pounds of brown sugar and 30 tons of Storm liquor per month. But I need you to sell me grain. I need it for brewing. Horde was stunned at the price. He probably figured he could resell this sugar in the capital for 5 gold per pound. He agreed immediately and asked for first rights if I ever expanded production. I declined that part. I can't make that promise. It's not entirely my decision. But as long as we're friends, the current supply won't decrease. He accepted those terms, and we worked out the delivery details. I'd just send everything to Grey Fortress. I gave them all the sugar and liquor I'd brought as gifts, and we parted on excellent terms. The next day back home, I officially broke ground on the North Castle. That consumed most of the territory's labor force, but now with the sugar and liquor trades confirmed, those operations needed workers too. The wild sweet plants wouldn't last forever. We needed cultivated fields for a stable supply, which meant more farmland, which meant more people. Everything always comes back to needing more population. I went to check on Wendy's sugar factory to see how much stock we had. Wendy, how much brown sugar do we have right now? Her face instantly went suspicious. Why are you asking? I was busy examining the sugar-making process and didn't catch her expression. The territory needs people. I have to sell the sugar and buy serfs. All of it, she yelped. Yes, all of it. What else would I do with it? Eat it myself. Let me go check how much we have. Wait here. She bolted toward the storage warehouse like she was fleeing a crime scene. Watching her run off, it finally clicked. Is she going to hide the sugar before I can sell it? Mia and old Charlie behind me stayed silent, which told me they were thinking the exact same thing. Just as I'd suspected, Wendy the little glutton had gone to hide her sugar. When I caught up to her at the warehouse, she was loading boxes of brown sugar onto a cart, sweating so much her clothes were soaked through, which made her already impressive figure even more noticeable. Old Charlie had already excused himself, and Mia hadn't followed inside, so I just stood there quietly enjoying the view for a moment. Once she'd packed the cart full, she called out to old Walker, the coachman who'd come with me from Tulip territory, telling him to leave through the back door. Walker, stop, I called out. I noticed the old man was still working as a driver at his age. I told him I was giving him a new job, something easier. He nearly cried thinking he was being fired. Wendy immediately jumped out of hiding and stood up for him. Don't punish Grandpa Walker. He didn't know I was stealing sugar. Punish me instead. She looked so heroically self-sacrificing that I couldn't help messing with her. I started looking her up and down, deliberately eyeing certain areas, pretending to consider her punishment. She clutched her chest and shouted, "Not that," which only made me laugh harder since her hands couldn't really cover everything. I told her to relax. Walker was just getting reassigned to guard the sugar warehouse door with double pay. But if any sugar went missing, I'd throw him into the sugar vat. The old man was thrilled and kowtowed in gratitude. Then I had soldiers come to take the sugar away. Wendy threw herself over the cart, trying to protect it. I explained patiently that we needed to sell the sugar to buy serfs, who would then farm sweet beets, because without planted crops, there'd be no sugar next year, and her factory would shut down. That finally convinced her to let go, though reluctantly. She reported about 10,000 pounds of brown sugar in stock after accounting for soldier rewards. Combined with storm liquor, refined salt, and seafood, I estimated that was enough to trade for around 1,000 male and 500 female serfs through Klein. I'd send Parker's squad to Grey Fortress tomorrow. I asked about her life spring water progress. She said the life magic array was finished, and she could now produce 10 bottles per month. Not bad. Just as I was about to reward her, my mana core suddenly detected something through the spirit brand I'd placed on little Cohen, my baby narwhal. Something was changing. I grabbed Wendy and headed for the bay, luring her with promises of big fat abalone. When we sailed to the middle of the bay, I clearly felt Cohen's spiritual energy had grown stronger. Had it advanced to first tier already? It was barely born. Wendy called out, and Cohen happily swam up, circling her boat playfully. After examining it by touching its horn, Wendy opened her eyes looking stunned. My lord, I can feel the power of a flood dragon inside Cohen. Is it a flood dragon descendant? I had no idea. Wendy rolled her eyes at me, then spent a long time communicating with Cohen directly. Finally, she told me, Cohen isn't a dragon descendant, but it definitely has flood dragon power inside it. Cohen says its father, a whale king, probably gave it this power, a whale king. 7th tier. Flood dragon power. Could it be connected to the 8th tier sea flood dragon that John once encountered? I started thinking back to the whale shark battle I'd witnessed when I first arrived, where they'd been fighting over some treasure. Could the whale king have placed that treasure inside Cohen? And could that treasure be connected to John's 8th tier sea flood dragon? The coincidences were piling up too neatly. The more I thought about little Cohen's connection to a 7th tier whale king and a possible 8th tier sea flood dragon, the more worried I got. The whale king I could handle. I saved its baby, never mistreated it, and worst case I'd just released the spirit brand. Even if the Whale King showed up angry, it can't come on land or fly, so I'd hand the problem to the black and white giant bear and give up the bay temporarily. With the Arrow Tree Grove, sugar, and storm liquor bringing in steady income, the territory could survive without the fishing operation. The real danger was the flood dragon. If the power inside Cohen was connected to the 8th tier sea flood dragon John had encountered, that was a catastrophe waiting to happen. The black and white giant bear couldn't handle an 8th tier creature, and the battle site was less than 10 kilometers from our bay. If that dragon came back and sensed its power inside Cohen, it could swallow little Cohen and all of Storm City along with it. I was already considering releasing Cohen back into the open ocean. I sent Mia to fetch John, warning her to drag him by force if necessary. Sure enough, when Mia's boat approached, I could hear John screaming from a distance about being interrupted. Let me go? My enchantment technique is almost finished, so he was close to cracking the enchantment secret from Fix's notebook. Great news, but right now wasn't the time. When John jumped onto my boat, he exploded at me, yelling about how I'd nearly ruined his breakthrough on a first-tier enchanted longsword. I'd never seen him lose his composure like this. He's always been proper and polite in that stiff southern continent way, so I must have really interrupted something critical. I held my hand over his mouth to block the spray and waited for him to finish venting. Then I told him calmly, Wendy found flood dragon power inside our baby narwhal. I think it's connected to your 8th tier dragon. Go look. He was mid-rant about enchanting when the words 8th tier dragon hit him. He froze completely. He rushed to Wendy's side and examined Cohen with his spiritual power. There really is flood dragon force in there. All color drained from his face. The terror of that dragon was clearly still fresh in his memory. When he sent Cohen away, the poor thing had sensed the heavy atmosphere and gone quiet, then started questioning John about the dragon he'd seen. Had it been injured? Were there burns on its wings or body, marks from being struck by lightning? John thought hard. He'd been too terrified at the time to look carefully, hiding below deck, but when he'd briefly peeked out. Wendy, are you saying it wasn't 8th tier? I asked, feeling the dread building. She nodded. I don't think it was an 8th tier sea flood dragon. Before I could finish asking what she meant, John suddenly spoke up. Yes, I think it did have those injuries you described. Wendy's face went grave. Then I'm right. What John encountered was a 9th tier holy dragon, one at 9th tier peak, that failed its tribulation to reach legendary rank and fell back to 8th tier. 9th tier? Legendary. John was shaking. I'm certain, Wendy said firmly. There's a dragon pearl inside Cohen. Only 9th tier holy dragons produce dragon pearls. Hearing about the dragon pearl inside Cohen, neither John nor I had any doubts left. Dragon pearls only form inside 9th tier holy dragons. Not even 8th tier dragons produce them. Combining that with John's past encounter, the picture was clear. John's ship must have drifted into the territory of a holy dragon that had just failed its tribulation to legendary rank and fallen back to 8th tier. The 7th tier Great Earth Knight and 6th tier Grand Mage on John's ship probably saw an opportunity and provoked the fight deliberately, knowing it was a weakened 9th tier. That would explain why the enraged dragon chased them relentlessly, a 9th tier peak holy dragon being challenged by mere 6th and 7th tier humans. Why it never returned was still a mystery. The situation was even more dangerous than I'd feared. I needed to settle two things immediately. Wendy, can the dragon pearl be removed from Cohen? She shook her head. The Whale King had placed powerful seals around it. Only a 7th tier mage or higher could break them, and forcing it or killing Cohen to extract the pearl would trigger a full power counterattack from the 7th tier Whale King. That explained why the Whale King only sealed the pearl itself but didn't protect the Spirit Sea, which is how I'd accidentally bound Cohen with a spirit brand in the first place. Then can the flood dragon energy be hidden well enough that the fallen holy dragon couldn't detect it? My lord, John and I are only 2nd tier mages, Wendy said pointedly. I understood. I started preparing to release Cohen's spirit brand and let it swim back to its father. But then Wendy added something that nearly made me choke. Actually, the Whale King seals should be able to hide the dragon pearl's aura. They fooled those two 7th tier megalodon sharks during the original battle, after all. The only reason we detected the flood dragon power now is because Cohen used the pearl's energy to break through to 1st tier which caused a temporary leak. The seals should cover everything up again soon. We just need to be careful during future breakthroughs. I stopped mid-release and took a very deep breath. Wendy, in the future, finish your entire thought before pausing. Don't leave the most important part for last. Are you absolutely certain about this? She pouted and went silent, apparently offended. I told her this was serious. She straightened up immediately. I'm certain. By tonight, tomorrow at the latest, the flood dragon energy will be completely hidden again. That changed everything. I didn't actually want to give up Cohen, a narwhal that's consumed a 9th-tier dragon pearl and is the offspring of a whale king. Its future potential is at minimum 8th tier, possibly 9th. That would make it the territory's ultimate guardian of the seas. Maybe one day I could even ride it across the ocean. I spent the rest of the day inspecting the mining island. The pighead women, children, and elderly were being managed well there. With steady food and nowhere to escape on an island, they'd never cause trouble. When I returned that evening, the flood dragon energy inside Cohen had vanished completely, as if it had never existed. The Whale King's seals were impressive. With that worry resolved, I went back to studying spells. I still had several zero-ring spells and first-ring earth spells to learn. Meanwhile, far away in the kingdom's capital Kanglan City, events were unfolding that I knew nothing about. The first Prince Paul visited the Tulip Marchioness Annalise at her luxurious estate, trying to invite her to a private banquet. Annalise, described as stunningly beautiful with violet eyes, politely declined, mentioning she had a royal dinner with the king that evening. The prince hadn't even been informed about the king's banquet, which humiliated him. After leaving with perfect composure, his mask dropped the moment he climbed into his carriage. He slapped his pretty maidservant for not knowing about the royal event, then used her to relieve his frustration before ordering his butler Robert to contact Auden, the disgraced former vice-captain I'd gotten expelled from Grey Fortress months ago, and tell him to prepare. Whatever the prince was planning, it couldn't be good for me. While I was busy with my territory, things were apparently happening in the capital that I knew nothing about. After the first Prince Paul got politely rejected and seemingly mocked by Annalise at her estate, he flew into a rage. He ordered his butler Robert to contact Auden, the former vice-captain I'd gotten kicked out of Grey Fortress, to hire Divine Eye assassins again, this time to kill me, Angeli's pretty boy husband. Robert tried to talk him out of wasting a valuable chess piece on someone so insignificant, but Paul wasn't listening. He also demanded that Fizz hurry up and deliver the half-elf he'd been promised, threatening to strip him of his Viscount heir status otherwise. Meanwhile, at the Tulip Marchioness estate, Angeli's personal butler Anna, a 3rd-tier advanced mage who'd practically raised her, worried about provoking the prince. Annalise wasn't concerned. She said Paul would never amount to anything and would eventually die a bad death. When Anna mentioned my situation, Angeli's expression turned cold. She promised to settle the score with Paul over getting me banished to Storm territory. Anna offered to send people to protect me, but Annalise refused. If the Tulip family visibly sent support, it would signal to rival factions and internal enemies that I mattered, and they'd all come after me too. By appearing to not care about me, she was actually keeping me safer. Only a short-sighted fool like Paul would bother targeting someone as seemingly unimportant as me. Then Annalise actually laughed. She'd heard I was doing well out there, connecting with the Lincoln family, getting Paul's people expelled from Grey Fortress. Anna reported that their intelligence network, called Flower Shadow, said I'd already become a proper knight and an elite archer by the time I passed through Grey Fortress. Storm territory had been exchanging significant war merits recently, and Clay had apparently reached 2nd tier. Annalise joked that they'd better hurry up with their own plans before her little husband surpassed them. I had no idea any of this was happening. I'd just spent 11 straight days studying spells and finally got Earth Spike to entry level, plus learned the zero-ring minor healing spell. I immediately dumped 11 attribute points to max Earth Spike at 1st tier. My panel was looking solid. 2nd tier intermediate knight at 133 out of 10,000. 1st tier junior mage at 284 out of 1,000. 382 attribute points saved up and 1,989 energy spirit points, all waiting for a base level upgrade before I could awaken another talent. All 3 innate talents at advanced level. Parker had finally returned from Grey Fortress after waiting 5 days for the Lincoln family's delivery. He brought back the new serfs, magic crossbow bolts, 3 potion recipes, and auxiliary materials. The recipes were Bee Queen Potion for first-tier warrior training, using first-tier magic beast queen bee honey as the main ingredient. I need to send people into the northern forests of Storm Peninsula to find some, which would also give us a chance to clear out the magic beasts before winter drives them south looking for food. Wind Thistle Potion for second-tier mage training, using a mutant second-tier wind thistle flower. The Lincoln family sent seeds, but it takes a year to grow, so John and Wendy couldn't use it yet. And the one I desperately needed, Ogre Potion for second-tier knight training. The main ingredient is a second-tier ogre brain. I don't know if the Lincoln family knew I'd killed a bunch of ogres before, but that's what they gave me. At least I knew where to find ogres. I asked John if the ogre potion's main ingredient could be substituted with first, third, or fourth-tier ogre brains instead of strictly second-tier. I had 3 second-tier brains, 5 first-tier, 2 third-tier, and 1 fourth-tier. Each brain makes 5 doses. John tested it and shook his head. Unlike Wolffire Potion, where the bone marrow can be diluted, ogre brains can't be substituted or diluted. I need to find more second-tier ogre brains somehow. I also asked about his enchantment progress. He groaned. After I'd interrupted his experiment for the Dragon Pearl investigation, he'd tried several more times, but couldn't recapture that feeling he'd had when he was so close to success. He wasn't blaming me anymore since the Dragon Pearl situation was genuinely more urgent. Plus, he'd started brewing magic beast potions to help little Cohen grow faster, hoping that one day he might ride Cohen back to the southern continent. I told him to relax, and he'd get there eventually. He agreed. Back in my magic laboratory at the Baron's residence, I decided to brew the ogre potion myself. When I'd made Wolffire potions before, I discovered that my panel precisely records every success and failure during brewing, meaning I never make the same mistake twice with the same potion type. My success rate keeps improving. I'm already at 50% with Wolffire, better than John. I spent 6 days brewing, using up 2 of my 3 second-tier ogre brains. John had the 3rd for experiments. Out of 10 attempts, I got 3 successful ogre potions. Not bad for a first run. Then I immediately tested one to see how much training value it gave me. Under the potion's effects, I trained for about 10 hours straight, working on both flame breathing and extreme flame foredirection simultaneously. The result, flame breathing went from 133 to 286 out of 10,000. Only about 150 points of progress from one potion. I did the math. At that rate, I'd need over 60 ogre potions to reach 3rd tier. That's a lot of second-tier ogre brains. Training really does get harder at higher levels. By 5th tier, potions alone probably won't cut it anymore. I need to start competing for rare natural treasures. Things that form in special environments that can be made into legendary weapons, arrays, or breakthrough potions for 7th tier and above. But those treasures are either guarded by powerful magic beasts or claimed by major noble families. That's a problem for future me. Right now, the immediate goal is getting enough second-tier ogre brains to reach 3rd tier advanced knight. I came up with 2 plans running simultaneously. First, ask Klein to source ogre brains through his supply channels, though he might not have enough for the quantities I need. Second, hunt ogres myself. For that, I'd need intelligence on ogre tribe locations, so I plan to ask slave traders who regularly send capture teams into the wilderness mountains. They'd likely have that information. Meanwhile, back in Frostmoon City, Auden was staring at a letter with a grim expression. The first prince had ordered him to hire a 5th-tier Divine Eye assassin to kill me. Auden noted bitterly how generous the prince was when it came to killing people, yet how stingy he was with his own subordinates. He planned to skim some benefits from this deal and start preparing his own escape route. Being used as a disposable pawn wasn't something he intended to accept quietly. Auden knew exactly what would happen after he hired the Divine Eye assassin. If things went wrong, the first prince would kill him to cover his tracks. He was already publicly expelled from the prince's faction, so his death would end any investigation. So Auden squeezed extra resources from the prince during the deal, then planned to flee to the neighboring Blackstone Duchy, an enemy nation where the prince couldn't reach him. What Auden didn't know was that 2 separate groups were watching his every move. In the capital, Angeli's intelligence network, called Flower Shadow, reported that Auden had secretly met with a suspicious figure they believed was from the Divine Eye Society. Annalise immediately understood. Auden's expulsion from the prince's camp had been staged. Paul was using him as a cutout to contact the assassins while maintaining deniability. Annalise called the prince insane. A royal member dealing with the Divine Eye Society was suicidal if discovered. Anna worried that the assassin might be targeting me. Annalise agreed it was likely, but said there wasn't time to send fighters. Flower Shadow only had intelligence agents near Grey Fortress, no combat personnel. She ordered them to rush a warning to Storm City, so I'd at least have time to prepare and to capture Auden in Frostmoon City. I was studying Earth Tremor spell when my super foresight suddenly fired off a warning. In 5 days, a 5th-tier Grand Mage assassin would infiltrate Storm City to kill me. Another assassination attempt. And this time they'd send a 5th-tier mage, far more dangerous than before. But I wasn't too worried. Thanks to the 5-day advance warning, the question was really who'd be ambushing whom. 3 days later, while I was setting up traps, Clay brought me an urgent letter from the Tulip family. That surprised me. My Martianess wife had never contacted me before. The letter revealed everything. The first Prince Paul was behind all the attacks on me. Auden was his agent. The incoming assassin was from the Divine Eye Society. Now I finally knew who my enemy was. I burned the letter and briefly wondered if Annalise had people at Grey Fortress specifically to watch me. But I pushed that thought aside. We had no conflict for now, and the 5th-tier mage assassin was the immediate problem. After that, I needed to deal with this prince. 3 times now he'd come after me. Did he think I was soft? Prince or not, my education taught me that you can be patient, but never a coward. The moment I got an opportunity, I'd bite back and never let go. I reinforced my trap preparations, mobilizing every available combat asset in the territory. 2 days later, fully armored, I hid near the south gate. Since we'd started housing pighead prisoners, I'd implemented a decontamination policy. Every group entering the castle had to strip and be dusted with lime powder. That routine was now the perfect screening tool. Around noon, a group of serfs hauling iron ore from the mining island approached the gate. I felt a faint trace of hostility, so subtle I would normally have ignored it among the usual background grumbles of discontented people. But today I was looking for it, and this one felt different. I signaled everyone to get ready. The transport crew entered the gate, and soldiers stepped forward with the usual routine. Stop. Everyone strip for lime decontamination. Line up, 1 row at a time. The serfs shuffled over casually, joking about the procedure. They'd done it many times before. The Divine Eye assassin hiding among them relaxed. He thought this was just normal protocol, not a deliberate search for him. I watched the serfs file into the decontamination huts, stripping and tossing out their clothes as usual. My eyes locked onto one ordinary-looking man. The hostility coming off him was faint but unmistakably pure, completely different from the casual grumbles of unhappy workers. That was my target. I only glanced at him briefly. A 5th-tier Grand Mage has powerful spiritual senses, and staring too long at close range could alert him. Everyone in the ambush had been instructed to watch the decontamination area only, not any specific person. The moment his clothes flew out through the doorway, I drew and fired. 2 3rd-tier piercing arrows in rapid succession, aimed at the tiny wooden hut. I pushed my reaction speed to absolute maximum. Any time spent carefully aiming might give him a chance to sense it coming. A scream. Then the hut exploded outward, and a naked middle-aged man burst out. His right arm was gone, clean shot off by 1 arrow. The other was embedded in his right shoulder. But what surprised me was that neither arrow had fully penetrated his body. A 5th-tier Grand Mage's mana force field was apparently strong enough to stop 3rd-tier piercing arrows from going through. Before he could find cover, he froze. 10 soldiers were already pointing magic crossbows directly at him. 2 3rd-tier and 9 2nd-tier magic bolts fired simultaneously. He had nowhere to hide. He gritted his teeth, and some kind of magical force surged around him. In an instant, he shot backward at incredible speed, dodging most of the bolts, but 3 hit him. The explosions blasted him into the castle wall. I fired 2 more piercing arrows. One hit his shoulder, but again didn't go through. The other, aimed at his face, he actually dodged. How is he casting spells that fast? I said aloud. Instant cast magic? Wendy, who was standing beside me maintaining Emerald Blessing on our forces, spoke up. That's an innate talent spell. Talent spells don't require drawing spell models, just a thought and spiritual mana, and they fire instantly. Innate talent spells. John's magic textbooks never mentioned those. But this wasn't the time to study theory. I needed to keep the pressure on and never give him a chance to use offensive magic. As my arrows hit him again, another 10 soldiers appeared along the wall's edge and unleashed 10 more second and third-tier magic bolts. Multiple explosions hammered him into a corner. Then came my 5th and 6th arrows, plus one 5th-tier magic crossbow bolt. He'd used his talent spell 3 times already and was visibly exhausted. But the moment he felt the 5th-tier bolt coming, death itself seemed to wash over him. He screamed, desperately forcing out more mana to dodge. The 5th-tier explosion was on a completely different level. Stone shrapnel flew everywhere, the wall itself shook, and thick smoke billowed across the entire area. 40 archers on the wall immediately started raining normal arrows into the smoke non-stop. The crossbow soldiers below switched to 1st and 2nd-tier bolts and fired blindly into the cloud. The smoke blocked everyone's vision equally, but saturation fire doesn't need precision. A blood-soaked naked figure staggered out of the smoke, arrows sticking out of every part of his body, and I mean every part. I actually flinched looking at it. He was at the end of his rope, but I didn't relax for a second. He somehow dragged himself toward the gate, only to be met by a wall of flames and the thunder of hooves. Clay's magic beast knight squad, directed by John from the wall, had cut off his escape. Mia leaped off her horse and swung at him. Even drained, a 5th-tier mage could still use his talent spell to dodge a 4th-tier warrior. But behind him, the 4th-tier magic giant crossbow was locking on again. That sensation of imminent death made him flinch for just a fraction of a second. That was all Mia needed. Her 3rd-tier enchanted short sword drove into his chest. The assassin looked down at the blade, and recognition flickered across his face. "So you're the ones who killed Nielsen too?" Mia didn't answer. "I did," with a 3rd-tier piercing arrow straight through his skull. A brilliant white light rose from his body and drifted toward me. As the white light flowed into me, I finally relaxed. The 5th-tier divine Grand Mage was dead. If Annalise hadn't sent that intelligence about the Divine Eye Society, I might not have prepared thoroughly enough. Originally, I'd only planned to use myself, Mia, and the magic crossbows for the ambush. I figured sniping a squishy mage would be easy. I'm a mage myself, and I know casting spells takes time. I never expected to run into someone with innate talent spells. I checked for any remaining hostility nearby. Nothing. I went down to ask Lori about casualties. The serfs had listened to my standing orders. The moment fighting broke out, they all hit the ground and stayed flat. Only a few got nicked by flying debris. No deaths. I told Lori to use this as a model example when talking to all the serfs. Follow orders, and you'll be fine. Then I spotted Wendy crouching next to the assassin's naked corpse, examining something. My face darkened. "Enjoying the view?" I asked. "What view?" She looked confused. "The naked body. Want me to show you mine tonight?" She turned red and snapped that she was looking for valuable items. Anyone with talent spells would carry good stuff. I pointed out that the guy was completely naked and his clothes were over at the decontamination huts. She blushed furiously, buried her face in her chest, as usual, and sprinted toward the huts. I asked John if he knew about talent spells. "Of course," he said, as if it was obvious. I bit my tongue before he could lecture me about not reading my textbooks again. I told him to preserve the corpse instead. I went to inspect the wall where the 5th-tier magic bolt had blown a massive hole. That needed immediate repair. When he came running back shouting excitedly, holding something up, the violent bouncing of her run made Clay and his men freeze mid-step and stare. I coughed loudly and sent Clay to inspect the wall damage. He snapped out of it and left, embarrassed. When he showed me a jeweled ring she'd found in the assassin's clothes, I glanced at it without much interest. "I'm not short on money. Keep it. It's yours." "Really?" She was thrilled. Then I told her she really should stop bouncing around like that in public. She looked down at herself, then looked back up at me and said innocently, "But my lord, you seem to enjoy watching. I've noticed you looking quite a few times." "That's ridiculous," I nearly shouted, then dropped my voice. "I have not." "Okay, if you say so. I'll stop bouncing then." I wanted to clarify that I only meant in front of other people, but the timing felt wrong, so I let it go and asked what else she'd found in the assassin's clothes. "Nothing else. Everything he had is inside this ring." "Inside the ring?" "Yes. It's a magic spatial ring called the Spirit Awakening Ring. It has a 2 cubic meter storage space inside, plus a fixed first ring spell, Spirit Awakening, that activates when you channel mana into it. I can't believe you gave me something this precious. I'll work extra hard to repay you. A spatial storage ring. The one item every teenage boy dreams of owning. And I'd just given it away without even checking what it was. About that. I stared at the ring on Wendy's finger for a long time, trying to find the words to take it back. I couldn't do it. Fine. I'd just borrow it from her later. She wouldn't be stingy about it. Hopefully. The ring is yours, I said through gritted teeth, but everything inside it belongs to me, Wendy happily agreed. She was practically glowing. I dragged her and John back to the Baron's study. On the way, I casually asked John if he owned a magic ring. He laughed and said even a basic one-ring magic ring costs tens of thousands of gold coins in his home kingdom. Then I asked if he knew what magic rings were. Of course, it's covered in basic magic tools knowledge, he said, clearly puzzled that I was asking. My eye twitched. Once again, my lack of reading had cost me dearly. This time I was definitely going to finish those textbooks. I told John I'd just given Wendy a one-ring Spirit Awakening ring. He stared at it with naked envy, then tried to hint that he'd like one too. I shut that down immediately. In the study, Wendy waved her hand over the desk and a pile of items tumbled out. John and I both watched with jealous fascination. The spatial storage function was incredible. John immediately grabbed a staff about a meter long. After examining it, he said it was a 4th-tier magic staff with a 4th-tier wind element magic core embedded in it, meaning it had a fixed 4th-tier wind spell. If the assassin had been carrying this thing instead of having it confiscated during the strip-down, he'd have been far harder to kill. Good thing I'd implemented that decontamination policy. Most of the other items were geography books and some unidentified ancient texts. Among several magic cores and crystals, Wendy pulled out a fist-sized white crystal. My lord, I think this is a mana crystal. Both John and I froze. A testing crystal. John snatched it and squeezed. It lit up with a red glow plus very faint hints of blue-green and earth yellow. He explained it tests elemental affinity. The colors show which elements you're compatible with, and brightness shows how strong the connection is. Wendy muttered under her breath. How can someone have such weak affinity? The room went silent. John's face turned sour. You try it then. Wendy grabbed the crystal and a blinding green light exploded out, nearly searing our eyes. After recovering, John silently handed the crystal to me. I'd always wanted to know my own magical talent, especially which elements I had affinity for. More would be better. I squeezed hard. What happened next stunned all three of us. The crystal erupted in a rainbow of colors, more shades than an actual rainbow. Earth yellow, blue, red, green-blue, purple, white, blue-green, green, black, and gold. Not particularly bright for any of them, about the same weak intensity as John's red, but the sheer number was unprecedented. Wendy counted them out loud, eyes wide. 10 different elemental affinities. Earth, water, fire, wind, lightning, ice, metal, life, dark, and light. My lord, I've never heard of anyone having 10 elemental affinities, John exclaimed. Me neither, Wendy added. All 10 types. Though they're all pretty weak. I completely ignored that last part. I don't need strong talent. I just need to be able to train in them. With my panel giving me attribute points every day, weak affinity means nothing. Having access to all 10 elements means everything. Looking at my 10 elemental affinities, I was thrilled. If I could train spells in all 10 elements using my panel, I'd basically be a walking spell encyclopedia. Solve the mana and spiritual power limitations, and I'd be worth an entire mage battalion by myself. Of course, collecting all 10 types of spells and meditation techniques would be incredibly difficult. John and Wendy both warned me not to get carried away. Spiritual power and mana are limited, so even within a single element, mages don't learn too many spells. Mastering one element thoroughly is nearly as effective as spreading thin across many, and takes a fraction of the time. I told them not to worry. I had my own plans. We finished cataloging the assassin's belongings. The haul was enormous. 12,000 gold in banknotes, wind element beast crystals ranging from 1st to 4th tier, magic crystals of various grades, the testing crystal, a 4th tier enchanted mage robe, the 4th tier magic staff, a 3rd tier enchanted longsword, various recovery potions, 16 geography books, 11 mysterious ancient texts, wind spells from 1st ring through 5th ring, wind wall, swift step, wind arrow, detection wind, gale sprint, wind blade dance, wind magic shield, and wind arrow rain, plus a map and a book titled Frodo's 13 Formations, Volume 1. The Formations book caught my eye. I asked if we could set up magic arrays in the territory. John said we'd all need to be array masters first. It's easy to start, but extremely difficult to advance, hugely draining on mental energy and time. He wasn't interested in studying it. He suggested Wendy since she already knew life arrays, but she refused violently, saying her 1st tier life array alone took 2 years to learn. I didn't push it. I could learn it myself and use attribute points to level up. The book contained 2 1st tier, 2 2nd tier, and 1 3rd tier formation, solid combat tools once mastered. The map was interesting. Wendy identified it as showing the eastern end of the Wilderness Mountains. When I showed it to Mia, she confirmed it and said the marked spot appeared to be in the perpetual fog zone near her White Wolf tribe's new settlement. She'd never been deep inside that foggy area herself, so the Divine Eye assassin had been marking a location in the Wilderness Mountains near Mia's old territory. Could there be treasure there? I told everyone we'd investigate once we were stronger, and when we did, we'd deal with the jackal people who'd taken over Mia's White Wolf tribe too. Mia was visibly moved. Even under the enslavement seal, she still worried about her people. I gave John and Wendy each a 1st tier and 2nd tier magic crystal for their training. Magic crystals help mages cultivate faster with no usage limits. Wendy stored hers in the Spirit Awakening ring with a smug grin. John watched enviously, then shot me a resentful look. Then he noticed I was also staring at the ring with longing. After they left, I spent 2 days buried in magic textbooks, hunting for information on magic rings and talent spells. I cursed the authors for not including a table of contents. I finally found what I needed. Magic rings are enchanted tools with fixed spell models that can be instantly triggered, saving casting time. Storage space was added later using spatial stones. There are also storage-only rings usable by knights and warriors. Talent spells require reaching 4th tier Grand Mage, finding a suitable elemental wonder object, and fusing a spell model into it during use. Some wonder objects even help create unique personal talent spells. That assassin's instant speed ability was likely a custom 4th ring spell unique to him. Talent spells can only be learned at 4th, 5th, and 6th tier mage levels, with a maximum of 3 per tier. While I was studying, Klein at Grey Fortress received a report from his people. They'd located an ogre tribe. After discovering that only 2nd tier ogre brains work for the ogre potion, I'd sent all my other ogre brains to Grey Fortress to trade. 5 1st tier, 2 3rd tier, and 1 4th tier. Klein didn't have any 2nd tier brains to swap, so he connected me with the Famon Count Family's Trade Association in Western Frostmoon Province. The exchange rates were robbery. Trading down was 1:3, trading up was 5:1. I ended up with only 16 2nd tier ogre brains, enough for 90 doses, of which I successfully brewed 47. Not even enough for me to reach 3rd tier, let alone share with Clay. I cursed the Famon family as swindlers for days. I'd also tried asking around Grey Fortress for known ogre tribe locations, but everyone I heard about was far too powerful for me to touch. So I asked Klein to keep an ear out. Now Klein's scouts had found one. 28 ogres total, 15 1st tier, 7 2nd tier, 4 3rd tier, and 2 4th tier, sitting in a valley 25 kilometers northeast of where the Pighead tribe used to be. They weren't likely to move anytime soon. Klein also mentioned that the Pighead settlement had been wiped out by some unknown force and was now occupied by scattered orcs. I got the message 2 days later through the small inn I'd set up at Grey Fortress, staffed by a few disabled soldiers and a squad of guards, registered under Klein's name for protection. Its main purpose was relaying important news from the fortress to me quickly. I checked my panel. Flame breathing at 623 out of 10,000. The 5th tier assassin kill had given me 10,000 energy spirit points, bringing my total to 11,989. Way too many sitting idle. I needed to level up my base skills to unlock the next awakening. I looked at Extreme Flame 4 Direction / Sitting at 56 out of 500 at 3rd tier. Perfect timing to upgrade before the ogre raid. I dumped attribute points and pushed it straight to 4th tier limit. That left me with 60 points. After taking the ogre tribe, I could trade the kills for about 42nd tier ogre brains from the Famon swindlers, roughly 200 potion doses, enough to break through to 3rd tier advanced knight with some leftover for Clay. The next morning I assembled the team. I'd wanted to bring John, but he flatly refused. His enchantment experiments had hit another breakthrough moment. He told me to take Wendy instead, saying she grew up in the wilderness mountains and was a life mage, making her far more useful than him out there. Wendy protested that her sugar factory was too busy, so I casually mentioned I'd just borrow the Spirit Awakening ring instead. Her attitude changed instantly. I'll go. It won't take too long, right? I smiled. Works every time. I marched out with Mia, Wendy, Gaddy's guard squad, Clay's magic beast knight squad, Ron's first archer team with 10 magic crossbows, and Parker's first infantry squad. We force-marched and reached the ogre tribe's perimeter in under 2 days. We set up 2 kilometers from the ogre tribe and waited for Clay's scouting report. He confirmed the intel. Exactly 28 ogres, 2 4th tier at the top. No surprises. I decided against a night attack. Ogres have excellent night vision and stay extremely alert after dark. Daylight would work in our favor. The next morning, as I was about to order the assault, Wendy stopped me. You're just going to charge in? She explained something I didn't know. Ogre tribes don't build permanent settlements. Their camps are disposable. The moment they detect an attacking force, their first instinct is always to scatter and flee, then assess whether to counterattack based on the enemy's strength. If we charged in directly, they'd bolt in every direction and we'd never wipe them all out. I looked at Mia for confirmation, but the White Wolf tribe had never attacked ogres, so she couldn't verify it. Then, Wendy gave us the solution. Ogres have one fatal weakness. They're obsessed with eating humanoid creatures. As long as there's no double-headed ogre leading them, you can just bait a few people out front, lure the whole tribe into a trap, and finish them easily. Her half-elf tribe used to clear out ogre groups exactly this way. Bringing Wendy was already paying off. This girl isn't just an eating machine after all. We found a good ambush spot, spread purification potion everywhere to mask our scent, and sent a squad of soldiers out as bait. The ogres took the hook instantly. They're fast though. Thank goodness my soldiers train running as a core exercise. They barely made it back to the kill zone in time. The fight was far easier than our first ogre encounter. I took 1 4th tier, Mia took the other. Clay's magic beast knights, the crossbow team, and Parker's infantry handled the rest without needing our help. Only a few soldiers wounded, 0 killed. I was so pleased I tried to kiss Wendy on the cheek as a reward. She rejected me without mercy. We cleaned up and started heading back immediately. I was eager to get home and break through to 3rd tier. No time for treasure hunting in the mountains. But as we neared the old Pighead tribe's valley, Clay raced back with urgent news. A human cavalry squad had just slaughtered the scattered orcs occupying the valley. They were from the raunchy Viscount family, and they were strong. 1 5th tier silver knight leading the group, plus a 4th tier warrior, 2 3rd tier knights, 2 3rd tier warriors, for 2nd tier and 4 1st tier. The raunchy family again. What are the odds? These people and I are destined to keep running into each other. Clay suspected they'd come looking for the squad we'd wiped out last time. Made sense. Fick the mage and his escorts had vanished in this area. Perfect. Ever since learning the first prince was behind everything, I'd been itching for a way to hit back. I couldn't reach the prince directly, but his raunchy family dogs were standing right in front of me. Time to collect some interest on that debt. I told Wendy that the people who'd captured her last time were back. She panicked for a second until I told her we were going to kill them and get her revenge. Her face instantly twisted into something fierce, adorable and terrifying at the same time. I gave quick orders. Clay's magic beast knights would circle around and strike when they saw an opening. Parker's infantry would form up properly. Human cavalry is no joke. Ron's crossbow team was authorized to use magic bolts freely, no saving ammunition. An hour later, their scouts spotted us. The 5th tier silver knight named Andal rode forward with his cavalry, puzzled by an elite human infantry squad in the wilderness. He wasn't worried. With his strength and a full squad of professional cavalry, even Grey Fortress's commander Klein wouldn't dare cross him. But when he arrived, we were already in battle formation. Then his eyes locked onto Wendy standing behind our lines. His gaze turned predatory. He'd found his target, the half-elf he'd come out here to capture. And she was in our hands. The realization of what that might mean was clearly dawning on him. The Raunchy family's 5th-tier Silver Knight Andal spotted Wendy behind my lines and immediately recognized her as the half-elf they'd been trying to capture for the first prince. He started screaming about what we'd done to Lord Fick and claiming the half-elf belonged to the Raunchy family. I turned to Wendy and told her these people had been tracking her all along, so she'd better be careful going out. She shook her head frantically and swore she'd never leave Storm City again. Andal was furious that we seemed to be ignoring him. He sized up my forces and figured we were just some minor Viscount's troops, too few professionals to be anything serious. Even the undermanned 4th Squad of the 8th Battalion had 9 professionals, so he formed up his cavalry and charged. I got serious fast. I told Parker and Gaddy to hold formation, and Ron to fire magic crossbows without holding back. As the cavalry thundered toward us, I quietly built a spell model in my spirit sea under cover of Wendy's Emerald Blessing buff. At 30 meters, I cast Earth Spike. A meter-long spike erupted right in the middle of their formation, impaling a horse and throwing a 3rd-tier warrior to the ground. The entire cavalry charge broke apart, their momentum killed. Ron seized the moment. 10 soldiers with magic crossbows popped up and fired. 2 3rd-tier and 8 2nd-tier explosive bolts slammed into the disrupted formation. Horses were blown apart everywhere. The frontline professionals, including Andal himself, all lost their mounts. I immediately put a 3rd-tier piercing arrow through the 4th-tier warrior's skull. I chose him first instead of Andal because it was a guaranteed kill and would terrify the rest. It worked perfectly. Andal was a dirty work enforcer, not a real battlefield commander. He had 0 experience handling rapidly changing combat situations. His hesitation gave Ron time to fire a second volley. Every remaining horse was destroyed. Then Clay's magic Beast Knight squad burst from the tree line on flame horses. Andal finally realized he'd been set up. We deliberately used the crossbows to eliminate his horses so our mounted knights would have total superiority. Too late. Andal ordered everyone to run for the opposite tree line, but Mia was already waiting there. She engaged Andal directly while the crossbow team picked off his retreating men. 2 1st-tier and 2 2nd-tier dropped instantly. I shot another 3rd-tier knight dead, then drew my enchanted longsword and headed for Andal. The remaining 6 enemies I left to Clay and Parker. Mia was struggling. Knight-class fighters are inherently stronger than warrior-class at the same level, and Andal was a full tier above her. Without her 3rd-tier enchanted armor, she couldn't have held on at all. Just as Andal was about to break free from Mia, I arrived. Instead of worrying, he actually got excited. In his eyes, I was just a 2nd-tier knight and 1st-tier mage. My biggest threat was the enchanted bow, and I hadn't brought it into the trees. He thought he'd found his chance to turn things around by capturing me. He charged at me laughing. "You're too arrogant, boy. I'm a 5th-tier silver knight." He swung at me, deliberately holding back so he wouldn't accidentally kill me. He wanted me alive. Big mistake. I activated my quadrupled speed and vanished from where he expected me to be. I circled to his side and unleashed the 4th-tier extreme flame 4-direction slash. 4 devastating strikes in rapid succession. First slash, cut deep into his leg. Second, severed his grip and sent his sword flying. Third, carved a deep gash across his back. Fourth, took his head clean off. White light flowed into me. My first face-to-face kill of a 5th-tier fighter. Though in fairness, Andal was an inexperienced knight who'd held back trying to capture me instead of going all out. That's why I cut him down so easily. I grabbed Mia and rushed back outside. 1 3rd-tier knight and 1 3rd-tier warrior were still fighting. With both of us joining in, the battle ended in minutes. The Raunchy family's forces were wiped out. Again, right after the battle ended, I got everyone moving immediately, no time to celebrate. My super foresight had just fired off a warning. A 6th-tier flame lion was passing through 5 kilometers to the north. Extremely dangerous. I barked orders rapid fire. Clay scouted ahead to the Pighead Valley. Wendy cast Flower Sea Purification on everyone to clear fatigue and used Starlight Divine Tree on the seriously wounded to keep them alive. We reached the valley within an hour and fortified the entrance with everything we had. Nobody questioned me. They knew I'd sensed something dangerous. We stood guard all night. I kept casting Earth Tremor to scan the surroundings. Nothing happened. The lion must have just been passing through, not hunting us. But it was a close call. At my current level, a 6th-tier beast would have been catastrophic. Even if we escaped, the losses would have been severe. Lesson learned. The wilderness mountains are no place to get careless. I need to come here less often. By morning, Clay's patrol confirmed it was safe. We moved out fast, dumping the raunchy soldiers' bodies in the forest for scavenging beasts to dispose of. Their loot was disappointing. Just 5,000 gold in banknotes from the Silver Knight, a 4th-tier sword technique called Ringtail Snake Thrust, and a 2nd-tier archery skill called Piercing Arrow from one of the 3rd-tier knights. Ringtail Snake Thrust is a continuous stabbing technique that chains attacks like a snake biting its own tail. Piercing Arrow lets you infuse battle aura into arrows for extra penetration. Our losses from the fight: 4 dead and 8 wounded in the 1st Infantry Squad, 2 wounded in the Night Squad. With Wendy healing everyone, no injuries would lead to permanent disability. That evening we cleared the mountains and reached the main road. Much safer territory. The next morning I split the group. Parker and I headed straight for Storm City while Clay took his knights to Grey Fortress to trade for 2nd-tier ogre brains and buy 10 sets of 1st-tier enchanted armor for the Night Squad, plus magic crossbow bolts, using the captured 5,000 gold. Back home, I started preparing for the long push to 3rd-tier Advanced Knight. With Wendy's spells and Life Spring Water, it would still take about 2 months. I needed to handle territory business first. The North Castle construction was too slow. It wouldn't finish next year at this rate. I planned to bring in more serfs now and eventually move the tamed pighead prisoners from the mining island to construction duty next year. They're stronger laborers than human serfs. Before Clay even returned, I sent Creel's 3rd Squad to Grey Fortress with the 12,000 gold from the Divine Eye Assassin to buy 1,000 male and 400 female serfs. The gender imbalance was getting worse, but development demands men right now. I'd address the women's shortage next year. I inspected the storm cannon production, going smoothly. I'd also designed a field-deployable version, a modular cannon that launches 100-pound stones, built to be quickly assembled and disassembled for transport on carts. A proper mobile siege weapon. The winch-powered crossbow cart, modeled after the magic giant crossbow, wasn't going well. Without magical enhancement, the giant bolts had terrible accuracy against professionals. I suggested either making the bow mechanism bigger or mounting multiple crossbows on one cart to fire volleys instead. Forget accuracy, just saturate the area with bolts. The Northern Forest's magic beast problem was getting worse, with more creatures venturing out towards settled areas. So after Clay returned with the ogre brains, I organized one final task before my training retreat: clearing the northern peninsula forest of dangerous beasts. I took Mia, the Night Squad, the 2nd Infantry, and 2 archer teams north. The forest is a narrow strip along the coast, 5 kilometers wide at most, stretching 30 kilometers east to west. Normally not enough space for many beasts, but the Gale Wolf threat had pushed various 1st through 3rd-tier creatures here as refugees. Clay briefed me on what they'd found previously: 2nd-tier thunder dogs, nightblade leopards, and blood-tusk boars, 3rd-tier water pattern pythons, iron lions, and fox bears, plus harmless 1st-tier snow monkeys, wind rabbits, and golden cattle that never leave the deep forest. They'd also found 1st-tier black knight bees, perfect for the bee queen potion. I told Clay to bring Wendy back later to tame them, so we could start brewing warrior training potions. We spent 6 days sweeping the forest from east to west. The smarter beasts, thunder dogs, leopards, fox bears, fled west immediately. The stubborn ones, boars, pythons, iron lions, I dealt with personally. With the forest cleared, I handed territory management to old Charlie, Clay, Parker, and Jenkins, then began my training marathon. I brewed ogre potions and used them immediately to train flame breathing, practicing ringtail snake thrust simultaneously during the physical conditioning. Day after day, my flame breathing climbed steadily toward the 3rd-tier threshold. 2 months flew by, and it was December 25th, with the Dawn Goddess birthday festival approaching. Everything in the territory had been running smoothly. The southern bay was thriving. No new Naga had migrated in since the last group left, so fishing operations expanded without trouble. Our shipbuilding had improved enough that boats could now fish outside the bay, providing plenty of meat for the territory. The first batch of firetail duck eggs had hatched, and and supply was finally keeping up with my appetite. Though with Windy around, the breeding program still had its work cut out. The North Castle was coming along nicely, foundations complete, walls rising up. After the festival, we'd bring the pighead prisoners over to Hallstone. The field-deployable storm cannons were progressing steadily, and the carpenters had successfully built the multi-bolt winch crossbow carts. The sugar factory and storm liquor distillery kept adding to our income. 2 more apprentice knights in Clay's squad, Fester and Victor, had broken through to full knight status. 3 elite soldiers became first-tier warriors, Hillman from the guards, plus Steve and Martin from the 1st Infantry. John, who'd already been at peak 2nd-tier mage, used the magic crystals and actually beat me to 3rd tier, becoming a 3rd-tier advanced mage. That meant we had to re-sign our contract using a 3rd-tier scroll, one of the annoying limitations of contract scrolls compared to the royal goddess seals that major nobles use. More importantly, John had finally mastered his enchantment technique and could now craft fire element enchanted weapons. As for me, after 2 months of grinding ogre potions non-stop, I'd pushed flame breathing to 2nd-tier peak. I spent my attribute points and broke through to 3rd tier. My life seed began transforming again, not as dramatic as the 1st-tier breakthrough, but noticeably stronger than the 2nd-tier one. 3rd tier clearly provides a bigger boost. I checked my panel. 3rd tier Advanced Knight. Extreme Flame 4 Direction Slash and Ringtail Snake Thrust both maxed at 4th tier. 425 attribute points saved. All 3 innate talents showing 0 out of 10,000 at advanced level. Energy Spirit, 23,089, and a new awakening was available. I hit the awakening button immediately. A new innate talent appeared on my panel, Sovereign Contract. At initial level, it lets me forcibly establish an unequal contract with anyone who can't resist, and the contract overrides every other contract in existence. I then become the absolute master of the contracted person. The contract can bind someone up to 1 tier above my own level. Current capacity, 1 person. The implications hit me instantly. This wasn't just a binding contract. It could override existing contracts. That meant I could take someone else's contract slave and make them mine. One of the most domineering abilities I could imagine. After admiring how terrifyingly powerful the Sovereign Contract talent was, I checked the panel's other updates. The daily attribute points had jumped to 100. No other new features this time. But that was fine. At this rate, my mage level could catch up to my knight level without even needing potions. At 4th tier, it would probably be 1,000 points daily. So I'd just pick whichever profession has easier potion access to train normally and use raw attribute points for the other. With 23,079 energy spirit points, I could only max out 2 of my 4 talents. I chose Super Foresight and Ultimate Speed. Foresight keeps me alive by letting me avoid overwhelming threats. Speed lets me punch above my weight in combat. Defense can be compensated with layered armor, and Sovereign Contract has no immediate use. I spent 1,000+ points upgrading Sovereign Contract to advanced level first. Now I can bind up to 3 people 1 tier above me and override all existing contracts. Then I dumped over 20,000 points into the other 2. Super Foresight hit top tier. 6 passive danger warnings daily, 10-kilometer range, 5-day advance notice, and hostility detection within 2 kilometers, nearly reaching the Cane River. 1 more upgrade, and it might cover the northwestern wilderness mountains, eliminating the need for constant patrols there. Ultimate Speed reached top tier 2, 5 times multiplier on all attack speed, movement, reaction time, and agility. That puts me beyond standard 5th tier Silver Knight speed. I briefly worried about the Gale Wolf pack. They hadn't shown up at Storm Peninsula in a long time. If the 7th tier Wolf King was trying to break through to 8th tier, that would be bad news, especially with the black and white giant bear still living nearby as its main target. I considered trying to trick the bear into leaving, but that thing is too clever. I decided to deal with it when it happens. Even if the Wolf King reaches 8th tier, my foresight would give me time to run. I'm too small a target for a Wolf King to care about. I walked out of my training courtyard after 2 months of isolation. Mia was standing guard at the door as always. I was about to leave when my eyes caught the enslavement seal around her neck. I'd surpassed her in strength now. It was time to take that thing off. It had always bothered me. I sent Mia to fetch Wendy. Half an hour later, while I was eating roasted firetail duck, Wendy burst in shouting about me eating alone before I could even explain why I'd called her. She spotted the untouched half-duck on the table, asked if it was for her, and started eating before I could answer. After we finished, I told Wendy I was removing Mia's enslavement seal. Really? That's wonderful. I've always hated that thing, she said angrily. I felt a bit awkward. She might as well have said she hated me for putting it there. I explained the situation carefully. The seal was placed by someone else while Mia was unconscious. If I just remove it, she'll think I'm the one who enslaved her and try to kill me. That's why I needed Wendy here to explain everything. Don't worry. Leave it to me. Wendy thumped her chest confidently. I had Mia remove all her weapons and armor, then told Gaddy to carry everything far away. Once everything was secure, I used the control band to release the seal from Mia's neck. She immediately went into a daze and collapsed to the ground. After a long moment, her eyes shifted from confused and unfocused to sharp and fierce. Human, you die. Just as I predicted, the first thing she did was lock her eyes on me and throw a palm strike at my head. Wendy, explain. Now, I dodged Mia's attack and screamed for help. With 5 times speed and agility, dodging Mia's attacks was easy enough. Wendy actually stepped up and jumped in front of me, shouting for Mia to listen. She didn't even finish her sentence before Mia roundhouse kicked her across the room. I panicked for a second. Wendy's only a second-tier mage, but then I heard her going, ow, 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 non-stop, which didn't sound like someone seriously hurt. Mia had clearly held back. Despite her rage, she still had enough sense not to actually harm Wendy. Those two had gotten along well during missions, after all. I tried explaining too, but Mia wouldn't stop attacking. After 15 minutes of dodging, I was getting tired. Nothing I said made any difference. Finally, I had no choice but to use my speed advantage to pin her to the ground. She'd been weakened by the seal removal and couldn't break free. I looked over at Wendy, the girl who'd eaten half my roasted duck and thumped her chest promising she'd handle everything. And she was lying face down on the floor playing dead, and not even doing a convincing job of it. Stop playing dead and explain things to Mia. She wouldn't budge. 1 more second of this, and you get no food for a month, plus you lose your sugar factory position. No. Please. She popped right up. She sheepishly admitted Mia scared her. I yelled at her to just explain from a distance. Nobody asked her to get close. All right, she said, like the thought had never occurred to her. She finally gave Mia the full explanation. Mia stopped struggling and stared hard at Wendy, which terrified her so much she immediately pointed at me and said, "He told me to say all that?" I nearly choked. But Mia stayed calm and asked Wendy directly. "He didn't enslave you." Wendy confirmed she'd only signed a regular work contract. "She works. I pay her and feed her." Mia went quiet for a long time, then looked at me and asked if it was all true. I nodded. If I was lying, why would I remove the seal? She studied my face, then said, "Let me go." I hesitated. "Let me go? I won't cause trouble." I released her carefully and backed away fast. She stood up and walked toward the door without looking back. "Wait," I called out. "I know you want to go back to your tribe, but 2 battalions of jackal people with 2 5th-tier leaders are there now. Going alone is suicide. I can help you deal with them, but we need to wait for the right moment." She paused mid-step. "I need to think about it. Take your time. Wendy, show Mia to her room. I know where my room is. I want to be alone." And she left. I rubbed my sore wrists. That woman is seriously strong. Then John showed up at the door. I asked what he wanted. He started asking about Mia, but I cut him off and told him to get to the point. He'd come to deliver his completed enchantment technique. Working from Fixed Notebook, he'd successfully mastered 1st-tier fire enchantment. He could now make 1st-tier flame swords, flame spears, and explosive arrows. I asked about enchanted armor. He shook his head. He only knows small fireball and has no fire defense spells, so armor enchantment isn't possible yet. I promised to get him a 1st-ring fire defense spell soon, plus some 2nd-ring spells so he could start researching 2nd-tier enchantment. I congratulated him on reaching 3rd-tier advanced mage. He credited the magic cores and crystals I'd given him. I told him it was his own hard work, unlike a certain someone who also got magic crystals but hadn't advanced. That someone being a rare life element prodigy, no less. When he caught the dig immediately, I just became 2nd-tier. I can't advance that fast, and I literally just became an adult. 2nd-tier is impressive, okay? John delivered the killing blow. The Lord just became an adult too. and he went from second to third tier in no time. Winnie's face crumpled. She declared she was going home to train immediately and stormed off. John and I had a good laugh. She'd forget this whole conversation within 2 days. After John left, old Charlie came by with a territory report. Nothing unusual. So starting the next day, I began studying John's enchantment technique alongside the Frodo's 13 Formations book. The formations are my top priority. Once I learn those, they'll be a powerful tool for both defense and combat. New Year's Day arrived. January 1st of year 6638 on the Dawn calendar, the Dawn Goddess Festival. The whole of Storm City was celebrating. The people of Alpha Kingdom take their faith in the Dawn Goddess seriously, so I gave everyone the day off and gathered all the residents together. I gave a short speech thanking the goddess for watching over Storm territory, then announced generous festival gifts for everyone. Elite soldiers got 3 silver coins each, plus half a pound of sugar and 2 pounds of storm liquor. Serf soldiers got 1 silver coin with the same sugar and liquor. Commoners got 3 copper coins, 3 pounds of fish, a small piece of sugar, and a small cup of liquor. Regular serfs got 1 copper coin, 2 pounds of fish, and the same small treats. Professionals would receive theirs separately. The cheering was deafening. Praise the goddess. Praise the Lord. After that, I hosted a small banquet for the territory's professional officers at the Baron's residence. Not counting myself, we now have 26 professionals, though besides Mia, John, Wendy, and Clay, they're all still first tier. I'd already re-signed John's contract with a new third-tier scroll and given him a raise. He's now a third-tier mage, second-tier potion master, and first-tier enchantment constructor. That kind of talent deserves better pay. Everyone attended except Mia, who was still locked in her room, plus Thomas on mining island duty, Roger on patrol, Jenkins on wall duty, and George at the storm cannon base. I raised 3 toasts. First to the Dawn Goddess, second to our fallen soldiers, third to everyone's bravery this past year. Then I handed out the real gifts. John got a second-tier magic crystal, Wendy a first-tier crystal, Clay an ogre potion, each first-tier knight got a wolf-fire potion, and each first-tier warrior got a bee-queen potion. This level of generosity would be unheard of in other territories. Everyone stood and bowed deeply in thanks. I left the party early so they could relax without me watching. I went straight to Mia's door and knocked. No answer. I spoke through the door. Mia, I know you're worried about your tribe, but you need to pull yourself together. If I have to fight those 2 Jackal People battalions with just my current forces, it could take years. But if you break through to 5th tier, maybe we can rescue your tribe this year. I promise, if the White Wolf tribe wants to move to Storm territory, I'll grant them legal commoner status and full protection. If they'd rather stay in the mountains, that's fine too. I turned to leave. The door opened. Mia dropped to her knees. My lord, Mia is willing to serve you. But I need those 2 4th-tier wind element beast crystals you captured. She explained that subhumans train as warriors, but have a unique enchanted physique that lets them use magic beast crystals for cultivation, unlike pure humans or orcs. Her physique is wind-attuned, and those 2 4th-tier crystals could help her break through to 5th tier early. It's not true magic warrior dual cultivation, though. Overusing crystals risks losing your mind to beastification. 2 crystals would be safe. I gave her 1 to start with. If everything went fine, she'd get the second. Thank you, my lord, she said with genuine gratitude. As we walked to my study to get the crystal, I smiled to myself. I couldn't sense any hostility from her at all anymore. She truly wasn't treating me as an enemy. What I didn't know was that trouble was brewing in the northwest. The 5th-tier pygmy chief Mach, the one who'd escaped our autumn battle, had spent 2 months secretly traveling back to the Orc Empire. He'd brought back a 6th-tier Minotaur chieftain named Shamok with an entire elite battalion of bull-headed warriors. Shamok mocked Mach's harsh living conditions, comparing them to the comfort of the Empire where countless human serfs farm for the Orcs. Mach explained that life in the Exile Mountains was getting harder as Alpha Kingdom's sweeps grew more frequent. Shamok reminded him that his tribe was exiled for cowardice in battle. They should be grateful the Empire didn't throw them into suicide squads. Then Shamok's tone shifted. If Mach's intelligence about the storm cannons proved real, the credit would be enough to bring the pygmy tribe back into the Empire permanently. Mach was already dreaming of going home. He'd risked everything on this gamble. bringing a 6th-tier chieftain with an elite battalion, all to guarantee the fall of Storm City and capture of the trebuchet technology. While I was studying formations and enchantment, I realized my spiritual power wasn't keeping up. So I used attribute points to push my mage level to 2nd-tier intermediate, which immediately sharpened my thinking. No wonder powerful mages can spend years buried in magical research. Their enhanced brains make learning effortless. After the upgrade, I mastered formation basics in just 3 days and maxed formation studies at 2nd tier with attribute points. It couldn't go higher than my mage level though. Unlike potion studies, which I'd pushed 1 tier above, I had 4 formations from the Frodo book to work with. 1st tier Invisible Array and Fire Spirit Array, 2nd tier Rock Prison Array, and 3rd tier Wolf Dance Array. A mix of support, attack, and trapping formations. Once I gathered the materials, I'd set them up around Storm City. Useless against high-tier professionals, but effective against 1st through 3rd tier enemies, which compensates for our shortage of professionals. Then I started learning enchantment construction alongside new spells, especially the 2nd ring petrification and stone skin spells. One for personal defense, the other for castle construction. Right in the middle of my studies, a danger warning slammed into my mind. For days, a 6th tier Minotaur chieftain leading an army from the northwest, headed straight for Storm City. Extremely dangerous. I froze. Where did a Minotaur battalion come from? Had the orcs launched an early southern invasion? No. It's winter, supply trains can't cross the wilderness mountains. Then I noticed the warning said 4 days instead of 5. That meant the attack was a recently made decision. My foresight can only precisely predict confirmed plans. Uncertain movements only trigger warnings when they enter range. None of that mattered though. What mattered was that Storm City probably couldn't withstand a 6th-tier attacker. Our crossbow carts, storm cannons, even the 4th-tier magic giant crossbow with 5th-tier bolts, none of it would seriously threaten a 6th-tier Minotaur. After thinking it through, there was only one option. Ask the black and white giant bear panda for help. I loaded up a cart with our newest liquor, first-run distillate, probably around 70 proof, the strongest stuff we'd ever made. John and I had even infused it with fire element potion ingredients to make it even more intense. Big Brother Panda, I brewed a new batch of premium liquor and brought it over specially for you. The moment I opened the first jar, the bear's nose twitched. Smells amazing. Give it. Give it now. It grabbed the jar and started chugging. A few massive gulps later, it threw its head back and roared with pleasure. Clay nearly jumped out of his skin thinking it was angry. Then the bear's voice echoed in my head. This is incredible. Only bring me this kind from now on. Don't bother with the weak stuff. It kept drinking. Dozens of pounds of liquor disappeared in minutes. We'd all tasted this batch ourselves. It hits hard. Incredibly hard. I was waiting for the bear to finish so I could discuss the 6th-tier Minotaur problem. But instead of settling down, it suddenly charged out of its cave. Then, right before our stunned eyes, it started doing kung fu. I rubbed my eyes hard. Yes, the black and white giant bear was performing martial arts. It swayed around like a drunk, throwing out strange movements surrounded by mystical mist and clouds. It looked like something out of a fairy tale. Then it breathed fire and ignited all the mist around itself, turning the whole area into a sea of flames that somehow didn't burn it at all. Is that magical drunken fist? Watching the black and white giant bear breathe fire and mist while performing those incredible martial arts moves, I was genuinely jealous. It looked amazing, and the shattered rocks around it proved the power was real. The routine lasted nearly an hour before it finally stopped. The bear stood still for a long time, then turned to me with a deeply sincere voice in my head. Thank you. I was confused. Thank me for what? It explained that the liquor had actually triggered a breakthrough. Not only had it advanced a level, but some of its old injuries had healed. It was now fully restored to 7th tier, and once completely recovered, it could attempt 9th tier Holy Realm. This bear really does practice drunken fist. Then it saw right through me. You didn't come here after half a year just to deliver liquor. Who do you need me to fight? As long as it's not 8th tier, I can handle it. This one's free. Consider it thanks for the breakthrough. I came clean about the 6th tier Minotaur heading for Storm City. The bear's reaction surprised me. Attack Storm City? Does that stupid bull not know my brewery is there? I told it months ago that half of Storm Liquor's operation belonged to it, a private bear enterprise. Threatening its liquor supply was apparently a personal offense. It declared this didn't even count as a favor and still owed me one. Then it demanded I take it to find the minotaur immediately. This was incredible. Not only was the bear fighting for free, but now it considered Storm City worth protecting because of the brewery. I'd been thinking about tricking the bear into leaving to avoid the Gale Wolf King problem, but now? Absolutely not. This bear was our ultimate shield. I needed to find a way to kill the Wolf King instead. I convinced it to come back to Storm City and wait rather than charging off into the mountains. Good thing, too. Bears this powerful sometimes sleep for days, and missing the battle would be catastrophic. It shrank down, hopped on my shoulder, and said it wanted to inspect its brewery while waiting. Back in Storm City, the bear camped at the distillery while I planned the battle. With a 7th-tier ally, victory was guaranteed, so I deployed half my forces outside the walls. Once the bear killed the Minotaur chieftain, the orc army would break and run. I needed troops positioned to cut off their escape. 4 days later, the orc army arrived. I told the bear not to rush in. Let the storm cannons thin the enemy first. If it killed the chieftain immediately, the orcs would scatter before we could trap them. The bear didn't care about strategy. Do whatever you want. Just don't damage my brewery. The Minotaur chieftain Shamak had Mach send 4 pygmy squads first as cannon fodder to test our defenses. The pygmies knew how terrifying the storm cannons were and attacked reluctantly until their officers executed a few cowards to motivate the rest. When they entered range, Jenkins and Owen fired everything. All the large storm cannons and half the giant ones. Stones from 20 to 100 pounds rained down. Even with the pygmies spread out, the losses were heavy. Shamak was delighted to confirm there was no magical energy in the trebuchets. You've done well, Mach. Start planning your return to the Empire. He kept sending Mach's pygmies forward as expendable scouts. After the pygmies lost half their numbers to cannons, arrows, and wall defenses, Shamak finally committed his elite Minotaur battalion. He sent his 5th-tier subordinate with Mach to attack the south wall, while he personally charged the east wall. I ordered all storm cannons and crossbow carts to fire without restraint. The battle was about to end. When the 2 5th-tier fighters hit the south wall, and the 6th-tier Minotaur excitedly climbed onto the east wall, eyes shining as he examined the storm cannons up close, a massive shadow fell over him. He looked up. Pure terror. Black and white giant bear.